This is Summoning Insight. Hello. Welcome to a fresh episode of Summoning Insight, MonteCristo.
Thank you very much. And, I thought we'd talk about Karmine Corp first because obviously Karmine Corp has had a lot of issues. Everybody's talking about what could possibly go wrong with Karmine Corp. And so I figured we could make some analogies here about Karmine Corp and their performance so far. So, one of the things that I hate is, sometimes you haven't gone grocery shopping in a while and all you have in the house anymore is just an eggplant and some chocolate. And both of these things are fine on their own, but there is no way you could possibly make these things work together. And you're kicking yourself and you wish, I could have gone shopping. But you know what, guys? If you get HelloFresh through us, you don't even have to worry about shopping because they will just deliver all of the right ingredients for a given meal, and you can make that meal properly from the start. You don't have to go to the store, and you don't have to rely on things that may not go together. They may be a little bit old and moldy from being in the ERLs for too long. That's a real problem as well. And also, sometimes it's a new year, and you want to make some fresh kind of changes to your life, change up your habits, right? Perhaps you've been eating a lot of fast food. And if you've been eating a lot of shit like Karmine Corp, then you can change your habit now and eat some fresh ingredients instead, right? And you can change that habit. I know it's really tempting if you've been coaching upset for 2 years to try another year of coaching upset, but that's just not going to work for you. So you got to get yourself some new habits, new meals, and that's why you should go try HelloFresh with our code. And what this means, guys, you can also get free breakfast for life with our code. You can get...
Just like Karmine Corp, they're free as fuck. It's all free.
They're free. It's so free. The breakfast you will get is just as free as Karmine Corp right now. So you can go to HelloFresh.com/LFNfree and use code LFNfree for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/LFNfree with code LFNfree. Thank you very much, guys. Again, supporting our sponsors is the best way to support us, after all. And we try and make it entertaining for you guys. Very good. So we will actually talk about.
The thing is, Monty, what threw me is I thought you were doing a Chekhov's gun, and somehow the eggplant and the chocolate represent. It's like the chocolate bore, because on the one hand you gorge yourself on it, you greed like he does, but it's it's sickly sweet in the end. Is the eggplant, is that supposed to be upset? The big dick players, but at the end he's just almost like a childish emoji on a phone instead. I thought, where's he going on this? But it's just about ordering food in. Fair enough. It's true. You indeed cannot make much out of an eggplant and chocolate. You did pick two good ingredients there.
Very good. So Karmine Corp, I will admit, I have not seen their most recent game that was played today yet. I'll be
also
doing
wasn't good. None of them were good, mate.
I know. But I have seen all of the other 5. And I'll be reviewing that last one on my stream tomorrow. By the way, guys, I am doing my bangers only streams right now, so you can check out MonteCristo on Twitch. We've been curating some of the best games from around League of Legends that have happened so far.
Gen G versus T1, that banger game, if people didn't see it, the marquee game to start LCK, so there's one to watch.
Yep, there's one to watch. And also I've got edits going up on my YouTube channel now, so edited versions on the GG MonteCristo YouTube channel. And then I have a new bangers only YouTube channel that is every single VOD in its entirety unedited if you guys want that. I'll drop all the links below. So you have 2 choices. You can get all of the unedited VODs, which are just the game from pick and ban all the way to the end of the game, or good games, good matches, particularly good ones. We'll be doing highlights on my main channel as well. So there you go. Go subscribe to both the YouTube channels and my Twitch channel. Thank you very much. That's my plug at the start. I have been streaming. I'm going to be streaming like 6 days a week this year. So it'll be a lot of games,
Yeah, that's good. It's a bit like one of the things I always appreciate on the NFL pass is they do that like 40-minute game version where you can either watch the whole thing or if it's already done, I just watch that one, mate, where they just cut out all the times you don't make it on third down or whatever, like it's obviously way better in it. Yeah. You just enjoy the best parts.
Yeah. So there you go. Karmine Corp. Let's turn our attention to them because
before we go to LEC, I feel like we got some other stuff we have to get into, right? Like it doesn't have to be big, but I'm sure people will wonder, Monty. This is one area where I think we can actually serve people. When people see that story from yesterday that Jacob Wolf, where he didn't report, he just tweeted it. Someone else reported. It was obviously Riot themselves released this information that they've laid off like 500 people or so, or 400 something people, right? As far as you know, it's not going to actually be like the people who do League of Legends, though, right? I think that's the part that people are missing, Monty. They saw like Riot Games, Les people off, and they're like, oh, they think it's esports winter. Like, holy shit, it's like everyone who's in the LCS department. As far as we know, it's just people within the company, right, who work on the games and stuff, right?
Yeah, so there's kind of several. Some esports people were laid off. I saw some names that I knew. People have been working there for 10 years.
But with big names, well, that's like famous people.
I mean, not famous people, but like people I knew personally who had been working there since I worked with Riot, and like some good people too, honestly. Like I was sad to see some of the names on there because they were some of the good ones. Unfortunately, guys, I know you're really excited. None of the shit ones got fired. I'm sorry. None of the bad ones got let go, as far as I know at this point in time, which is a big bummer. It's a big bummer. It was an opportunity to clean house, but of course, there were no like upper management people who were let go from Riot Esports.
Even of course, their salary would help even more, and you'd have to fire less people, wouldn't you? But yeah, no, silly old me with that one. Yeah. By the way, check out, if you don't know, I think it's on the YouTube Shorts or whatever. Check out as I requested. There is now the musical version of my rendition, "Silly Old Rigby," copying Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles. It's actually out there. It's on Twitter. I think it's on the YouTube Shorts. Maybe it's a good little clip. They actually put the music behind it like I told them to. It actually sounds great. I'm also almost on beat. It's not bad. Because I didn't have that music playing in the background. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
So yeah, a lot of the people that were let go, so they made a post and they said some of it's from Legends of Runeterra, the really bad card game that Riot made, because they've said it's not profitable. And here's the key, guys. They said very specifically, Legends of Runeterra, they've spent more money on it than they've made. Now, you'll notice they don't say this about esports. Which is very interesting, very interesting. Now, you would have expected them to say, hey, we're dialing back on esports because, you know, we're not making money from it. But again, we know their marketing exercise is very successful, and they are tying significant revenue to esports that, again, they have been hiding for years.
I think people forget they have 3 games that are pop. They have TFT, fucking Valorant, and League of Legends. Guys, they must just be printing money, mate. Come on, they must just make so much money off these games.
Of course. And then some of the artists they let go. They stopped the Riot Forge program, which was their partnership program with independent developers to use League of Legends IP for new games. So I saw some of their writers and artists, concept artists and stuff. Those people were let go. Some people on the production side were let go. Some producers on the esports side, I think, were let go. They let go some people from like Wild Rift Esports, which, you know, basically wasn't going anywhere. And they had kind of canceled their esports circuit for that anyway. So I found that less than surprising. So it was kind of a smattering of people here and there. But substantively, I don't think it will really have any real effect on League of Legends esports. So that's kind of where we're at with this. Otherwise, you know, I think it's a bummer to see that, but ultimately, I don't think this is going to be something that really affects our team, like our esports world, that is. So, there is some other news that was very interesting this last week, Thorin, that we have to discuss, which is something, again, that we can only do on this show because no one else is capable really of talking about this in depth, which is that the LCK teams issued a public joint letter to the LCK, basically telling them in no uncertain terms that the business of the LCK was garbage. They were losing a bunch of money, that revenue projections from the LCK have not been met, that they were given when franchising started, and that they were very, very angry. And this is rather remarkable because we haven't seen, they said all 10 teams said that they agreed to this statement.
Then came the drama, didn't it? Then came the drama. Shall I read out the tweet, the deleted tweet now, Monty?
Yes, you could read out the Joe Marsh deleted tweet.
Our favourite punchy bag /idiot/CEO, Joe Marsh, base Joe Marsh, By the way, even the fact that guy says based on whatever, LS. Listen, you've been known to make questionable choices when it comes to men. I've told you that joke 1 million times, but it will always apply to this day. So what happened is Joe Marsh made a tweet. Now, by the way, 2 pieces of context, guys. 1, he deleted this tweet. And then 2, he deleted his whole Twitter account. So actually, if you don't understand, it's even implied this tweet's why he had to delete his whole Twitter account. So, and by the way, you'll see why. Because think about what Monty just said. This is like double lift level shit. Are you ready, guys? So you know how Monty just said the teams all collectively got together and were like, right, let's, do a show of force. Together, we'll write a letter that says, this is unacceptable. We have to do it differently. Good old Joe Marsh does a tweet. T1 LOL told the other 9 teams we did not wish to participate in this letter. We told them we wouldn't comment publicly as to not hurt their cause. But that was before they posted it without changing the language from 10 to 9. T1 talks to LCK in private, not via public letters. Now, the reason why, by the way, guys, that is mental is 1, you have just also full-on double lift, fucking wrecked all the other people in this group because you're T1, the main crown jewel of Korean esports. And then 2, if you know how chairballs work, guys, the idea that everyone in all these orgs would just hold stand, this almost feels like I'd have to go to the different levels of the companies and the investors and find out, I wonder what they really think, though. Who would they support? Because in this particular case, I think actually just this tweet alone, you actually have low-key done a double lift. You've sort of publicly undercut the whole message. Even if you didn't agree, if the message was 10 instead of 9, if it's we're double lift. By the way, that was one of the best details of the LCS walkout that they could say. We had every player. That was actually quite compelling. That does crystallize in your mind. So what's your thoughts on this overall topic, Monty? Obviously, there's 2 parts. There's the weird tier 1 angle, and then there's the angle of what about team action against LCK? Because people will know from Arnold's tweets last year, they don't make money in the LCK. They also lose money then. It costs a lot of money to run teams. Is why presumably they brought in the financial protections, like the salary caps and the rookie contracts and these things. So what's your thoughts on either aspect, the T1 one or the overall one?
So the other thing about T1 is just because Joe Marsh said something in a knee-jerk reaction on Twitter, because we know Joe Marsh just goes on Twitter and says random shit. Yes. And he doesn't.
The Koreans might not think this at all, right?
He doesn't have a lot of foresight in his public statements. Yes. Remember him talking about oiling up owner on Discord? Remember all the random crap that he's just tweeted? He's had to delete a bunch of tweets in his time. So here's the other thing. It is possible that the Korean side of T1 did agree to this, and Joe Marsh did not know, or that something was lost in translation somewhere along the way about the message, and did he fully understand the context of the statement that went out only in Korean, right? And did he just use Google Translate to read it? And so was there something that was lost there? I don't know. But it's certainly, you cannot discount that possibility in the sequence of events. And certainly, Thorin, it seems like there was dissent at T1, because otherwise, why would he delete his tweet? And then why would he delete his whole Twitter afterwards? If he was just going to stand strong on this and he didn't fuck up at all. So we can ask, how did he fuck up? Is it because he fucked up, like you said, Thorin, because it was a show of weakness and he undermined their cause? Did he just not understand that some people in Korea did agree to this and he didn't know about it or misunderstood, or there was some issue with, like I said, something lost in translation? We don't know. It's also clear that T1 has the most to lose in this situation.
Oh, there's a tweet. Actually, I didn't see this until now, Monty. There's actually a tweet from Tucker, who owns T1, where this is how you know what happened, mate. Because someone said something about, are you ready? Someone replied to a tweet about this topic and said, this doesn't look good for T1. And this is from a long-time T1 fan. And Tucker, who is at BLT on, he's the creator of Star 4 Worlds. Is this the guy, right? He just doesn't have many followers. He's a famous guy, though, right? Basically, he replied and said, while many of the points relating to LCK business are legitimate, using the T1 name in a statement we haven't approved is not okay.
I mean, Tucker may not know either.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Again, if there's some divide between the T1 side, so for you, the guys who don't know, Tucker Roberts is the son of the Comcast CEO, and he's the one who runs all of the esports operations.
You replied to it. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
You actually replied to this thread. Okay.
Yeah. He is the one who, runs. He's basically Joe's boss.
And it just shows you that obviously the line of communication, something's getting lost. Something's broken in this system.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows what it is? Something could have happened between the SKT side and the Comcast side, because this is a joint venture between Comcast, which is led by Tucker Roberts, and the old SKT organization that kind of formed a joint venture to run T1. So there's two different entities involved. Now, one thing that I want to point out, Thorin, and I pointed this out on the Monty and Wolf show, which is again out this week, but it's very important to note that it is a very rare situation where all of these chaebol companies, so let's go over the companies that have invested or who are operating teams within LCK, okay? So we have T1, which is part of SK Telecom, which is part of SK Group. SK Group includes SK Hynix, which is a chip manufacturer. They have like a market cap of something like $65 billion. They're one of the biggest companies in South Korea. We have KT, who's one of the biggest telecom companies. We have Hanwha, who, as we've discussed previously on this show, does Hanwha Life is their life insurance product, but they started as an explosives manufacturing company. We have Kwangdong, which is a pharmaceutical company, right? There are a lot of big organizations, huge organizations that run esports teams. And these huge organizations are bigger than Riot. Many of them are much bigger than Riot. And they run a variety of sports teams. And so I want you guys to ask yourselves, what would it take for all of these massive Korean companies in a culture that is fundamentally conflict averse to publicly create a statement against Riot? Like,
by the way, I want to ask you a quick thing just to shed this in. Do you think also, because to me, a significant part of this is, even though there's Riot Korea, Riot, the overall company, though, isn't actually Korean. I wondered if that's a component here, Monty, because I feel like if this was like OGN or some other thing that was tied into Kesper, they just never would be a public thing. It'd be more like Joe Marsh's, it'd be privately, maybe they discuss things or push back. The idea they've done it publicly, I agree, it's like that's quite an emphatic thing for Koreans to do. Yeah, they're going out their way here. Like, I don't think people understand. In a way, this is way more momentous than the LCS walkout. It's just it hasn't got the same fanfare with Western fans is all. Yeah.
I mean, this is much bigger because these companies are much bigger than Riot, both some of them individually and certainly collectively by like orders of magnitude, right? And this should be something, their budgets for these teams should be really not significant compared to their overall marketing budget.
If people want to know, I've just looked up. The SK company has assets worth $153 billion, guys. So just gonna put that out. That's one of these companies, by the way. So just throw that out there. No biggie.
Exactly.
No biggie.
So they have cash to burn. And like you can say, okay, well, SK didn't want to do this, but there was clearly some misconception that was happening. But a lot of these other companies, which are also fucking huge, are coming in and they're saying this is broken, which also means, by the way, that they have told Riot Korea behind the scenes about a million times that the business model is fundamentally broken. And they call them out. They say, you are not sharing the profits that are made from the successful marketing of the game that we provide. And they have the lowest revenue shares of any major region, despite the fact that they are hugely watched, right? Despite the fact that they literally
won the last two worlds as well.
They won the last two worlds. They've won more worlds than anybody else. They had 1 million concurrent viewers for the first day of T1 versus Gen G, guys. Compare that to LCS, which has 100,000, like literally 10% of the viewership. This is kind of a disaster. And for these big companies to like put their foot down publicly and say like, this is not working for us, there has to be some massive change here. This is crazy that they would do this. And I think people just don't understand the importance
I mean, think of the analogy I
action.
gave to the LCS walkout, Monty. To me, this implies, like, again, think about what Monty said. This isn't just like, oh, we're making a political statement, guys, like power to the people. They're doing this because they want something, guys. And in fact, if they all 10 come out initially, actually the implication is we actually sort of, we're not boycotting you, but we're sort of holding your feet to the fire. You better do something about this. Or like the implication to me is maybe they leave LCK. Like that's surely on the table after you've publicly sort of dissed the league in a way.
And you have to look at this too and say, who are the teams that have been involved? Some of these teams like T1 and KT have been involved in esports for 20 years across different games. And I have never seen them. I never saw them make these kind of statements in Brood War. For StarCraft, when they were still paying a lot of money, they were happy with the results. And it took really until like Brood War dying for them to kind of finally give up on it. So, this is very serious, and it's about the legacy of esports in Korea, because many of these sponsors have been the most stable sponsors for decades in Korea, and them walking out, they're not easily replaced, right? They're not easily replaced. Like Samsung hasn't come back since they sold their slot to Gen.G. And they were replaced by Gen.G. And I love Gen.G as an org, but Gen.G is not a company that makes hundreds of billions of dollars a year like Samsung is, right? So, this is, it's very huge that this is going on. And I expect, like, this isn't going to be something I think Riot can easily sweep under the rug. It's very easy for them to ignore team owners in the West, because Riot's very good at pitting them against each other, and because they know that, they have a lot of power in that situation. And ultimately, Thorin, they know that the teams, because they are funded by venture capital and they're independent entities, are very dependent on Riot. Like, they need the value of that franchise slot. Whereas, like, you think SK Telecom actually gives a shit? You think KT gives a shit?
By the way, I'll give you one. Here's an angle. There's two things to say here. One, I also think this is way more significant because this is the region where, for example, I know T1 apparently didn't want to be in this letter. Although, by the way, remember, this is the thing I want people to understand. As soon as that tweet is deleted, then someone else, even on the Western side, sort of makes it imply maybe he doesn't agree and that just doesn't represent T1. That actually implies maybe T1 is part of the letter. Maybe it is just all 10 teams. So I wouldn't let that part, the Joe Marsh drama, distract you. It seems like essentially he wants to delete that and make it unhappen, like I imagine a lot of things in his career. But if we look at the idea that all these 10 teams want to leave, well, one, T1 is the team that just won Worlds, guys. If it's not a great system, how it works, and they're about to get world skin money, etc., that's pretty worrying. They should be the model citizen that shows you how awesome it is. You probably know this, Monty. Back in the day when there were tournaments that used to be mega scuffed and run till like 2 a.m. or have admin problems, the one player who famously would never complain is the one who won the fucking tournament, because obviously he has reasons to be biased and go, nah, it was all right, and in the end we did get the game because he wants it to be legit. So if T1 wins fucking Worlds, and then they might also be like, this doesn't work, that's a big problem, guys. They've just won the biggest prize. And then I'll just trade this in as well. Quite frankly, Monty, everyone will hate this angle, especially because Karmine Corp shit, as we talked about in LEC. But I'll tell you what, Monty, when I saw that off-season tournament thing where it was like Karmine Corp against T1, that first thing I thought was, bro, this is why that super team was going to be attempted in football. Because why the fuck would you waste your time playing in leagues against nobodies if essentially, like, using like boxing terminology, you're always the A side of the card. You're always bringing all the fans to the game. When I watched that game, Monty, remember, at the time, Karmine Corp was still an ERL team and T1 were the fucking world champions. Nobody should be watching that match. That should have zero interest whatsoever, Monty. It had mad, like, fans in the stadium, people on stream. It was even hyped. Like, my first thought if I'm T1 there is, why do I need LCK actually? Wait a minute. Wouldn't actually, like, for me, T1, I could go and do show matches in China. I could go do show matches in America with Team Liquid and Cloud9. I could go do show matches in Europe with G2. Like, wait a minute, mate. Like, Riot, you actually do need to make your offer better, mate, especially if we're bleeding money, because there's actually other ways we can do this where it has its own way of working, but not in your circuit. So I do think it's obvious to me you can't keep doing things the way they were before. Like, I agree with you. It's momentous that these teams have all come together together. It's not even like it's not even, think about this, guys. Another way you could have done this, if it was just about the info getting out there that LCK is broken, you could have just had a journalist write, sources close to some teams say they're concerned about the operation of it. No, they've themselves put their name on a fucking letter and published it. And as Monty says, in Korea, that is a massive deal. You do not ever disrespect your business partners, by the way.
Yeah,
like that would be like a death sentence in Korea. Yeah. This implies to me, like I say, because I'm with you, these companies are way bigger collectively, especially. This implies to me this letter's basically telling Riot, like, get your shit together or there might not be LCK anymore. Well, that's what it says to me.
I mean, Arnold, and Genji didn't chime in on this one. I mean, why would they? Because like the big boys are saying things now. Like you don't have to pile on.
Sure.
I don't think. But Arnold has been publicly complaining about this for years.
He's been doing a soft version of it, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's been saying, like, the economics don't work. Here are some ideas. And the economics don't work, guys. Like, they don't work. The teams don't get cuts of skin sales in spite of selling the skins. And by the way, Thorin, I think this is also why Joe Marsh said what he did. I think you hit the nail on the head. Joe Marsh is waiting for those world skins to come in. That is millions and millions of dollars in T1's pocket once they release those world skins. And here's another prediction I have for you, Thorin. You know how they announced that Hall of Legends thing?
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean for the players?
Yeah.
They will have Faker be the first inductee.
Okay.
Because even though it's silly to have a Hall of Legends where you have an active player, like a Hall of Fame where you have an active player.
Yep.
But the reason why they will do this, Thorin, is because they want to make an epic Faker skin, an Ahri skin, because Faker's already teased that the Ahri skin might be coming next year.
By the way, I will say, you know what? Even though normally, Monty, that is actually risible, because think about this, guys. He hadn't won Worlds since 2016. Like, nobody can predict they'll win again. But I will say, if you've won 4 times, then you're like, actually, you know what? I'll do the Ahri skin next time. That is pretty Chad. I can't lie. That was pretty baller. I can't lie.
It was, but I think what this actually means is that he knows he's getting inducted into the Hall of Legends.
He's getting double dipped. Right, okay.
And he's going to get the Ahri skin. And why they will do this, Thorin?
If you made like a Hall of Fame edition Ahri skin fit, I feel like that is surely that's like you'd print money at that point in time, surely.
So I'm sure T1 wants that money. And here's the reason why I think they will do it before Faker retires, Thorin. Because
here's another prediction. I predict when that skin comes out, magically Ahri will get buffed. That's just listen, one of those crazy conspiracy things. I feel like it'll get buffed. What who knows, right?
So when we talk about this, why Riot will do this, why they will allow players to be in before they retire, is because it's a business decision. They will sell more skins if Faker is still an active player. Because think about it this way. If we wait till Faker retires and then his Ahri skin comes out, I don't know, a year later, the people who watched Faker are all going to, they'll go buy that skin. But if Faker's not actively playing, then kind of the memory goes away. New players may not have ever watched Faker. So you want to strike while the iron is hot and while he's still playing. Objectively, from a business sense, I am 1000% confident you will sell more of these skins, which is exactly why Riot will not wait until Faker retires to release this Ahri skin. That's my prediction, guys. Book it. And this is why Joe Marsh doesn't want T1 on this letter, because he knows he's got his World Championship skins coming. He's got the fucking Faker mega skin coming. And this is all money that's going to go to T1, because T1 isn't going to be mad about the business, because the only way to make the esports business work in League of Legends is to win Worlds, guys, because that is the only time you get a cut of the skins. That's the only time. So, of course, the business model is working for T1. No wonder he didn't want to be part of this letter. Like, it's so
in that case,
transparent.
The joke is, it is even better as an analogy to Doublelift, because the real reason, guys, spoiler, why Doublelift didn't care about the walkout is he gets paid a fucking king's ransom. He wants the league to happen so he can get his money. Like, he might have pretended he cared about NS. He didn't really. He cared mainly about himself. So in the same way, the joke is, like, the main person you'd need for the actual community action, if they actually benefit themselves, they obviously have a conflict of interest, don't they? So they have a reason to potentially actually go against you like this. And the joke about this is, even though he's deleted it, he has already publicly, at least in the West, undercut the message, because now he's like the seed of doubt, whereas you were supposed to believe they were all in unison and it was just a collective action, weren't you?
Yeah. And also, guys, yes, it's true that all of the teams in LCKs do get a cut of the skin revenue, but guess who gets most of it? Come on, use your brains. Like T1's going to get a lion's share cut of this skin revenue, and the players get some too. I know this from talking to players. The players do get some of this. So, yeah. And this same story is playing out absolutely everywhere in esports right now, and especially within League of Legends. But the thing is that all of the teams in the West don't have the leverage that the LCK teams do to write this letter. Because like I said, the companies that exist in Western League of Legends need the value of the franchise slots to justify the valuation of their organization. They need this. So they are not going to do anything that jeopardizes this, because even if they're not making money, they don't want to lose control of an asset or be kicked out or like boycott the league and potentially, get it removed. So anyway, it's very interesting. I'm curious if this will ever pop up publicly again, or if Riot's going to be able to kind of deal with this internally. But you should be aware that this is going on, and that this is the canary in the coal mine of the esports business failure. This is it.
By the way, you've just made me realize I did a tweet along these lines, because you just made me think, wait a minute, you're right. If you don't have the slots, actually, the org's worth not much. So my tweet was, hey, at Forbes, can I get an update on TSM's valuation? Because TSM has nothing, guys. Like, how could the company actually be valued at anything at this point? They don't have League of Legends, Valorant, fucking Dota. They have a shit CS team. That's about it. Like, they have nothing. Yeah, they have fuck all. And by the way, that's also why you can't do it in the West, Monty. The joke is, instead of this happening in the West, people like TSM just left. Like, the people like TSM would have been the number one people to do this. Like, it would be TSM in America, and G2 in Europe, and Cloud9 and Fnatic as well, of course, But like, these are the teams that would have to do it. And the joke is, in the West, they don't have anywhere close to that leverage, so they did just exit the game instead. Like, that was the alternative.
It's okay. They're coming back. Oh, by the way, Thorin, here's a funny one for you. I don't know if you know this. So a few months ago, about TSM, there's a guy named Sui Generous who was like the manager of TSM's. I guess he was managing the kind of acquisition of a new slot for TSM, and he posted, it takes time, guys, for these acquisitions to go through. Don't worry. Like, we're working on getting a new slot for TSM.
Is this the shit of buying like an LPL team or something when they claim they were doing that?
Who knows, right? About? Yeah. So a few months ago, he made a post and he was like, hey, it takes time to like go through the financials and like, get these deals done. So basically, like, I know it's been slow coming, but, we're still working on it. And then he quit TSM.
Classic banter. I'm going to guess, guys, it wasn't working out well for him. That means he saw the writing on the wall. He was like, I'll just get out now. I know what's happening.
He went to Razer, the mouse and the hardware company. So I just saw him like announce that he was on Razer, and I'm like, interesting.
One thing I have always wondered about Monty, as much as I laugh at like Lena and the shit she was up to, I just actually have to ask myself this. If Reggie used to intervene in stuff he thought he knew about with like esports that he didn't, like famously like tell Dyrus, like, why don't you build Merc Treads on like a build champion that's not even like AP or whatever, and then like, or there'd be ones where he'd be saying like, yeah, Dodge Kaiser Q or whatever. Imagine if he actually really ran the whole company at that though, Monty, if he was trying to be like, hands-on with everyone. So he's just coming in the finance department, like, what are you doing with that? Do the other one here. Like, I'd love to believe that like actually there were like decent people in the company, but he just fucked up all their jobs. But then at the end, it just looks like they fucked their job up and they have to leave the company, because it feels like that. Like has anyone ever gone on to bigger things from TSM? It doesn't feel like it, right? It just dooms your career. It's over. Also, the other thing that is sad, I will say, because you'll have seen this in CS4, CS2. In CS2, Nickel and Ihom of Astralis is back, right? Like some fucking mad WWF. Oh my God, whose music is that? Nickel and Ihom's music. He's supposed to be out of the scene. Because if people don't know, someone else was like leading Astralis the last few years, and he sort of took a back seat. The joke is, though, when I saw him come back, it actually did make me sad, Monty, that there isn't going to be Reggie anymore. Like, as much as these people are objectively idiots, like bad in some ways for the scene, but at least they're characters. Like, you can do something with the character of Reggie and Nickel and Ihom that you can't do with like faceless team that no one knows the CEO of, that never tweets, never does anything public. You can't do anything with those.
That's the tragedy of Joe Marsh deleting his Twitter.
It is. It really is, isn't it? Like, I actually wish he didn't, mate. Like, not a joke. Almost, even though you're all going to think the opposite, almost everyone who deleted their Twitter, it makes me sad. I want Nicole Jameson on Twitter. I want Froscorin on Twitter. I want Joe Marsh on Twitter. I want all these motherfuckers on Twitter. It was the shit. What are you talking about? They generate free lols for us, or like on a regular basis for no reason. Just gave us free laughs. Like this tweet, when I saw that tweet, I was like, perfect. This is incredible. Why have you tweeted this? Oh, you've now deleted it. Brilliant. Even better. Like that's like, I wake up in the morning, you can't even believe that's happened. It's just a free gift from the world, and it's just humor. And it just makes me think that thing where it's like, one thing I have always thought they did a pretty good job with in Lord of the Rings is you'll notice even when evil seems overwhelming, when you sort of look in isolation, it's always mega incompetent. It's all fucking idiots like this, just fucking up their own shit. So it's like, that's what also gives you hope, is that like the bastards always are fucking semi-incompetent like this, mate. They just trip over themselves and fuck everything up. So yeah, there you go.
Too good. All right. You want to talk about Karmine Corp now?
Yeah.
The people have waited.
Because here's the thing, Monty. I'm just going to throw this out there at the beginning to mad trigger everyone before we start, which is, to be fair, you all did say last week that it was Karmine Corp and Vitality were pure trash. We'd never win again. Now, Vitality turned it completely around against the bad schedule, just won all the games. But here's the key point. I'll actually admit myself, there is no reason Karmine Corp will ever beat anyone in the LEC. And the reason why I say that is this, Monty, because they do still have that weird thing like Vitality, where for the first 15 minutes, they will inexplicably be in a game or have kills or have looking like they could have a slight gold advantage or it's even. But beyond that point, right, normally, Monty, for a team to get to that point implies a level of competence. That means like eventually you'll even trip over and win a few games. Somehow from that point onwards, they become a different team that is extremely good at never winning the game. Like from that point, they essentially make every wrong decision, it feels like. Like every team fight is garbage. They never have any coordination. They're clearly, by the way, the shot calling doesn't even exist as far as I can tell. And I'll just throw this in as the last one. The worst one of all was everyone was saying, right, oh, hopefully Sakin does what, like, mate, that guy is just perma-choking. It's just obvious, mate. Like, it's not that he's bad. He is just perma-choking, I'm telling you. Like, this guy looks like he could never pull the trigger. He's just constantly like, oh, shit. And as a result, it's like there's nothing in the game. Like, we can flame people, we can get him all that, but, like, everything has collapsed right now. It's like the joke is the only thing we're standing is fucking Yamato Cannon on Twitter, and everyone's trying to break down the last siege wall out there. Like, he's trying to break his metal as well. So there's nothing left in this team. It's fucking sad. And it's stupid because there's so much time left, Monty. Here's the saddest part about it all. If I could go into that room, I would tell them, it's just the first split. You can even turn it around. Like, you still got good players. Surely there's a band-aid. But the problem is, though, the last aspect I'll add is, psychologically, they also look broken. They also don't look like they believe what I'd have to be, like, rousing them. They don't believe what I would say in that sense, I don't feel like.
I mean, the thing, too, is that I think the drafts have actually been quite good. So I think Yamato has actually been, in my opinion, setting them up for success a lot of the time, but they haven't been able to. I mean, there have been some, like, I wasn't a big fan of the Malphite pick in the G2 game, but, it's kind of, Kabashard also played it really badly.
Somebody, by the way, that looks like if I had to guess, that looks like Kabashard asked for that, though. You know what I mean? I don't know that. Just you might can't read draft that for someone who doesn't want it. It feels like you say, like, give me the Malphite here or something, even though it's a bad choice if so.
To me, Thorin, it has been amazing watching these games because I don't know if I've ever seen a team that looks like it is communicating less than this one. Like, they seem incapable of communicating even basic ideas to each other. And if you want a good laugh at this, go check out the Mad Lions game, because there's literally a ward. And they see El Yoya wrapping in from behind. And Bo has set a trap for him in the tri-brush. And his lane has push. And they could collapse on El Yoyo, who they know is about to walk into this bush. And yet, upset is not part of this play at all. And so it completely fucks up. And you just wonder how they could have this information, lay a trap, and then not everybody is actually on the same page with a good 10 seconds of warning that this is what's going to happen. And it's not even rocket science. Like, you're playing Caitlyn Ashe, you're going to be pushed up. It makes sense that the enemy jungler will be coming in through tri-brush behind you. So let's wait here and then kill him. And that's not what ends up happening. So part of it is that it seems like nobody knows what anyone else is doing or what, who's going in. Because like Bo will go in sometimes, and I agree with his take that he should go in, but then there's no follow-up, and it's just completely baffling. And that's
there's one thing I can't handle. We can get into some of the problems Bo has. He does clearly have issues in LEC games. It was the same in Vitality. But here's the one thing I can't handle, Monty, is this is where casuals show their casuals. This motherfucker is getting sold up the river constantly. Yes. Like the way he is going in, Monty. Remember, he comes from the LPL. If this is an LPL team, he is doing some fucking great fucking jungle engages and diving on the backline. But like you're saying, it's like the problem is he's trying to play out the LPL, Monty. He just doesn't know he's in like a fucking silver game on EU West, and everyone backs out and just leaves him to look like a dickhead getting his head smashed in. Like some of these ones that he does, like mate, the joke is if you are upset and you had Peel, you dream of a jungler like that who goes all the way in and then you just kill everyone. But like you're saying, when he does that, they just walk out and he looks like an idiot and dies. It's really sad. It's so tragic because everyone's saying this thing now, Monty, that I can't handle. They're doing this thing of like he should just play like more like a normal jungler and more. Then why do we have him? We got this guy because he's a stud, so that he can be the best player and we'll play around him. We didn't get him to just be like Joe average LEC jungler. We could just get someone from the RLs. Like I think that's one part I can't handle because we can certainly talk about like, for example, Bo makes bad decisions himself and sometimes doesn't group
and
properly.
He gets tilted, clearly.
But that part I will never blame him for, mate. That is exactly what the doctor ordered. That is what he is supposed to do if you're going to have him in this team, in my opinion.
You need to go in when he goes in because, in my opinion, oftentimes his instincts are right. And the thing is, now the downside to Bo is that when things start to go badly, and we saw this with Vitality too, his mental is weak, and he is a little shitter.
Completely.
He is a little shitter. And he does quit. But the thing about Bo quitting is that he just ints. Okay? So we're at the point now where like he's just kind of inting. And it's depressing to see. So yeah, he has had bad moments. I'm not trying to say he's been the perfect player, but he also has no backup. And let's consider his teammates right now. Saken just looks like he's choking half the time and is scared to play the game of League of Legends. We have Targamas, who has been just terrible.
Criminal.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
We have Cabashard, who has been just terrible. Like really, really just awful. Like these guys are playing awful at an individual level. And then you have Upset, who, as far as I can tell, if I had to diagnose this problem, I would ask the question, are Upset's comms delayed by 5 seconds? So somebody says something and then Upset gets that message 5 seconds later because he's constantly behind the play. And I don't know why that is. But he's never there when things are happening, even though he could be there. So I don't know if he can't understand what's going on. There's a lot of like language, barriers on this team, but he is not trusting his teammates at all. And that is a big problem.
No, I mean, the joke is that's what happened, if you remember, at the end of Vitality. When he first joined Vitality, they were pretty good. And then at the end, he just wouldn't even join the fight sometimes, mate. Like, he'd just be on the field and just walk backwards all the time. Like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Because at the end of the day, you get sick of just dying yourself as well. Like, just spoiler, Reckless did this for half a decade, guys. So, like, that's just how you do it, innit?
Like, as far as I can tell, when Bo gets tilted, what Bo does is he just runs it down. When Upset gets tilted, he does what Gen Z calls quiet quitting, where they just refuse to work. Like, I think Upset is actively quiet quitting right now.
Yes.
Like, I think it's super funny because in the first couple of games, I thought Upset was doing, especially the first game, I thought he was doing fine. But it's like the longer this goes on, the more Upset just feels like he doesn't want to be involved in anything that his team is doing on the map.
And by the way, I'll just throw this out there. It's both a joke and analysis. Bear in mind how badly this has gone, Monty. It's obviously reminiscent of XL last year, where they had a big name team and then it went so badly you lost every game. The problem when it goes, you lose every game, guys, is someone will get replaced. Like, they're not just going to keep running the same roster back. So that's the worst thing when a super team fails like this, mate. If you just did like fail as in you don't win the league, you come like fifth, you get another split with the same players, you can figure. At this point in time, the joke would be if any of these players are having, sort of like office office anxiety, can't get into the culture. Well, don't worry, you'll be working from home soon. You will be fucking watching LEC like me and Monty, receiving your paycheck. Thank you, fucking Deutschland. And you will just be watching the game like the rest of us while some ERL player plays in your spot. Because there's the other thing we have to think about now, even though we're only 2 fucking weeks in, is, mate, if they don't 3-0 this next week, I think there's a world where they're going to replace someone for the next split. Like, someone has to fall on the sword, mate. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know who it'll be. And I'll tell you what, here's the other angle I'll just shade in right now and get ahead of it way before the drama starts, Monty. This is where that national approach is going to bite you in the fucking arse. Because notice the 3 players you pointed out have been really egregious, Monty, are not only the Karmine Corp players from last year, they're all the French-speaking ones. Good luck kicking them. Good luck keeping a Chinese and German guy in your French org and kicking 2 beloved players who've been in the org for years and won you championships at the lower level, and then a guy who everyone likes in Target. Like, it's going to be hard. It's not the same as just kicking people for performance, mate. So there's the worst thing about this as well is not only are they in dire straits and they have to turn it around competitively, mate, there are no right answers. Every answer just gets you flamed more. Like, you can't kick a player, you'll get flamed. If you keep the player and he's bad, everyone will say, oh, you just keep him because he's French. If you fucking do nothing, then Yamato's going to get fired. Like, they're in such a bad spot now, it's crazy. And what's sad is, I know it is just 6 BO1s. So in terms of actual sample size, it really isn't the end of the world. You really can even, by the way, for real, it's happened. By the way, teams like DRX have done this. DRX won Worlds after being like dodgy as fucking LCK. Like,
yeah, super bad.
But the problem here is it's the format. In this split, you are basically done. Even a Miracle Week might not do it. So that's the real problem for you, is like, you're going to have that like thinking period where you don't make it fast and there's so much time in the split. That's when I think, unfortunately, there might be like the sword of Damocles hanging over the team. And it's so sad because, mate, the worst thing about all these games where they're always in the game is just if they just won 1 or 2, even if they played just as bad, like I said, there's a different scenario, mate. Then we've got like some wiggle room. Then you've got like some reasons to feel positive. Right now, I feel like the pressure is just getting worse every loss as well. Like, if they keep losing as well, mate, this is going to be so fucking bad. Like, at this point, maybe they set the record. Maybe they lose every game. It's not impossible anymore. It's really not.
They look terrible. They look really bad. This is maybe like the least coordinated professional team that I have seen in years.
Here's the thing. I know people are going to think this is Corpium, Monty. I don't mind if they do. But my problem is this. It's like XL. When I look at the players, though, this is why, unfortunately, even though I don't agree with it, I actually do understand why fans will focus on Yamato. Because even if you actually aren't the fan of Bo, etc., even if you think some of these players are overrated, when you look at those 5 players, it's not a team that wins 0 games, though, is it, guys? Come on. No. Like, we're in a league where Mad Lions is like half wins, half losses. Like, this is a team that at least should be mid-table. So I have to say, the other problem I have is I can't just write it off like just a bad team. They're all fundamentally bad players. No. Like, something's gone really wrong here. There should be a way to salvage this, in my opinion. There should be a way. I don't know whether it's like a super band-aid, very cynical drafts. Maybe it is bringing 1 ERL player for a specific position. By the way, I've got to say right now, Monty, people are going to hate this, but if I actually did have to swap 1 player, because my problem is I don't think they will swap mid lane. I think that's just the one that they're not even going to consider. Mid lane would be the obvious one, just bring in a competent mage player. But if you can't, the obvious one is Targamas, in my opinion. I know people are going to go, but that criminal Capuchin. No. The worst thing about Targamas was this, guys. He would do very specific support picks that he would then never use the kit of. It was mental. Like, what's the point in an Ashe that never hits an arrow? What's the point in some of these picks? Like, he just has picks where he actually just does nothing. And I feel like that little bit, this is where support will always be invisible. The joke is, when Kerrier does insane support play in a team fight, you don't see him doing it. You see all the carries that he enables who then carry the fight. So the real problem here is when Targamas has these games where he does nothing, I feel like they don't even have a chance when they get to the team fight, mate. I've seen him start. And then also, you're right, Upset definitely is doing some mad shit where it's like, it's like being paid by the auto attack, like fucking hell, like what's got right, but maybe paid by like how few he does. He just like 3 auto attacks or something that fucks off all the fight, and he's what the hell is this?
I think he's trying to maximize the amount he gets paid per auto attack, Thorin.
Oh, there you go. Oh, he's trying to make it like I got like 10k for that auto attack, right? There you go. Okay. I see what you mean, right? Edit the wrong way around. Exactly.
You know,
it's basically an analogy. You'll know this one from Jodorowsky's Dune, where he was going to get get Salvador Dali, but because Dali wanted to be the highest paid actor in the world, he had to agree he'd only use him for 10 minutes because then he could pay him $100,000 a minute. So, like, the joke is he would give him 10 minutes. That must be how Upset operates in Karmine Corp, I guess.
But what a train wreck
for Yamato as well, mate. Because the worst thing is, like, because they're not even giving him one win, he's got nothing to work with. Like, he's already done, by the way, he has been flawless with his PR game so far. He's like accepted responsibility. He's promised like we're going to turn it around. Like, but the problem is they're just not giving him anything. All he needs is one fucking fluke win even, and he has something, to build off. Whereas right now, like, he's in the depth of a 0-6 hole. Like, this is fucking dark, boys. This is dark.
I mean, I just can't believe that they lost to Vitality, especially in that game, because it just felt like they had all the tools they needed to succeed, and then they still managed to choke it away. And like Kabashard's Rumble ults were terrible. Targamas's Rel play was terrible. The whole thing is just too funny. It is very entertaining. I mean, the whole thing is extremely entertaining. And I
can't lie to you. One part about this that does give me a little bit that delicious Schadenfreude is those annoying ass Karmine Corp fans who are just taking a plate of shit to the face every week. They're coming along. Remember, they get up in the morning, putting on their blue jersey, get to the LEC. We're going to do that wall thing, aren't we? We're going to do the wall, aren't we? And then in the end, you know what? All in all, you're just another brick in the wall. You fucking mark. You've been wrecked again, haven't you? Even though the joke is I'm spotting them too, but in this case, I do sort of love when fan bases get mega wrecked like that. Like TSM fans, some people just have to take it. You have to take it.
I just wonder what you do if you're Yamato at this point in time, because now your back's against the wall. Potentially there are untouchable players on the team that are the worst players on the team.
Yep.
I mean, it's honestly shocking to me because I hadn't seen Kabashard since the last time he was in the LEC because I don't watch the ERLs, and to see him in this form is depressing.
Oh, something's happened to that guy, mate. I have no idea what it is because he's just bad. Whereas, like I say, like Saka just doesn't pull the trigger. He's just bad. I don't get it, mate. He was good at the RLs when I saw him. He looks like a good player again. He really did look like he deserved to be back in LEC. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, something weird is definitely happening. Maybe he just knows he's untouchable and doesn't care. I think, especially the players.
Now I'm pissed off because you know what really annoys me, guys, is I've learned my lesson now. Now I'm going to have to support a third team that Bo's definitely going to win the LEC and MVP with when he moves to that team. This is getting really annoying for me. I wish you guys in the LEC would learn your lesson so that I don't ever have to, and I could just double down a third time because I absolutely... No, whatever. I might have to give up on him soon, mate. Here's the thing. I haven't quite yet because I still hold out the dream that like it can turn around, but... This next week will probably break me. This might be the end. I've held out a long time.
There's no way. There's no way they're getting the fire back. Like they are mental boom, dude. They're not going to come back.
And I'll just throw this in there as well. This is an angle people won't think of, Monty, but I'll just put it out there. This is also where, there's another component of team building that I had to learn, which is like the social component can actually kill a team too. Think about this team, Monty. So we have two solo laners who are French. By the way, if you don't know, French people, a lot of people might know they can be a bit whiny sometimes. Some of my friends who are French, I'd say that about, believe it or not. It's just one of those things that comes with the territory. That's how they're going to be. They can be a bit whiny, a little bit sulky, like that. So you got them. And also, like Monty says, they're the franchise players, by the way, probably untouchable if they want to be. So you can't remove them. That's brilliant. That's like your boss having a couple of spoiled kids who work in the office. They're shit at their job, but they can't ever be fired. And then we have a star performer in the office, though, Monty. We've got one of the best office workers of all time. He's German, of course. So he's a sour ass fucking cunt. And the second he gets upset, he's going to be pouting, just stay silent in the corner, just writing letters. So, Mama, do you not believe what you get what's going on there? So the French, as usual, Bo is literally fucking Chinese and is now mega failed. Well, yeah, he's only had 1.5 chances, but this has gone really badly twice. And he's been completely sold up the river by about two totally different groups of Europeans again and again. While his coach promises him, no, Bo, it's good. Just keep going in, Bo. You can trust us, Bo. You can trust us. We wouldn't lie to you like the other ones. And then he goes in, gets completely sold up the river again. And then after all that, you've got Targama sat there like, I am not quite French, but I am sort of French. They're like, that's good enough. enough. And then he's just also had that shit year on Excel. Like, mate, the joke is your motto must just have to be, he would have to be like so overwhelmingly positive. It would just like transform the consciousness of all of them instantaneously by aggregate. Like, how would he ever win this group over? Like, where's the, by the way, this is why also unironically they should have signed Niski, because where is the fucking leader? Where's the positivity? Yeah. If people don't know, Upset's style of leadership is just, I play really awesome and I do it by example. He's not a vocal guy like that. He's not patting someone on the back. It's not even his style. Like, I actually think the other aspect you got in this team is it's only Yamato, mate. He's the only person who's got like a fucking personality who could bring this around, and he's just the coach. He's just the coach, guys.
Bo's life is actually the Charlie Brown. It's actually the Charlie Brown football meme where
yes,
the rest of the European players are just loosely holding the football and telling him to send it one more time. Oh yeah, go really fast. You're definitely going to kick it really far this time, Bo. Just 2 teams in a row.
Yeah. It's mental, in it. I know.
It's so good. But yeah, Trimby just sitting on the bench, by the way, while Targamas is in the league. Cool.
Imagine, oh yeah, by the way, imagine being Trimby every week coming in. Oh, well, let me just get paid to analyze why these guys are about 100 times worse than me. Give me a break. This guy, let me in the game, coach. Can I play it? Oh, by the way, you are aware, like I'm on a fucking free too. You just sign me now for nothing. Literally, if you throw a penny my way, like fucking The Witcher's fucking whatever the bard guy was, I'll just pop in and play the game. You can't like, nah, we're just gonna stick with Targamas. He's sort of French.
Toss a coin to your Trimby.
Exactly.
All right. Do you want to talk about? I mean, I think we've hit on a lot of the LEC stuff in previous weeks, so maybe
the last joke of all goes like this, Monty. Do you know why in every single build, no matter the champion, Targamas always takes futures market? Because that's the only sense in which he has a future in League of Legends, whatever. It wasn't the best work, but you can say, there's something there. We'll workshop it, okay? That'll be better on Best Damn League Show, guys. I'll bring it back. I'll reframe it. See on Best Damn League Show for that one. It's all good.
Yeah. I think we'll hold off on the rest right now. We can talk about a lot more LEC next week or on Best Damn League Show. Just because that's when we're going to end the first kind of phase of the winter season and we can start talking about the playoffs. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun so far, but the Karmine Corp is really the most relevant information that everybody is dying to talk about right now.
Oh, and by the way, just as an aside, if someone watched the LEC section, I'll get into it on Best Damn League Show, but I will also just say, shout out to everyone who's a player or coach at BDS. You fucking killed it so far. I had no expectations of that. You've killed the game. Fair play. Just a genuine piece of praise. There you go. There's your flowers. Because I will piss on them the second you lose. So it's all good. And if you lose, by the way, especially later on, I will just go, I was right all along, but that's just the best style. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about that, guys. The soundboard's always there. Right, what do you want to pivot to then? What do you want to talk about now?
I mean, we had opening week of the LCS with all the promised changes, Thorin. Lower downtime, being on the live patch, and do you know what happened to the viewership?
Was it still just non-existent by any chance?
It went down. Big shout out, by the way, to ES Charts, who continues to keep track of this. And not only do they keep track of this, they actively write articles telling you exactly what you need to know about the viewership year to year. And they make very helpful infographics, which is fun for me, but it's not fun for the LCS. So by the way, LCS spring 2024 to spring 2023. So these are, week 1 statistics. Now, obviously, guys, we expect hours watched to go down because there's 1 fewer match per day because there are 2 fewer teams. So it would be disingenuous only to look at the hours watched because unless they had a large increase in viewership, then that was basically guaranteed to go down. So they did. Also,
I will give them I'll give them one lifeline, Monty, which is technically, back in the day, the NA broadcast used to piggyback on the EU one. Well, now the EU one actually eats the lunch of the first games because everyone knows in EU we love Kit Kat so much we have about 7 breaks before we fucking. Mate, that's one thing that's mental right there. But if we're all going to every year give Riot Games Publisher of the Year, could the game fucking vaguely work? Like, This is mad unacceptable. Like, I'm from Counter-Strike, guys. Bugs happen, technical problems happen. This happens to them every single day, Monty.
Happens in LCS too.
It's absurd, isn't it? It's crazy how much it's going on now.
I've been loving doing bangers only on my stream, Thorin, because I just skip the 30-minute pauses every time and don't waste my life.
Yes.
And that's why you should watch them with me too, because you too cannot waste your life on 30-minute pauses. But yeah, so... but here's the other side of this, Thorin, is that LCS wasn't getting the LEC raids. They weren't getting the hosts on Twitch last year, right? Because they moved to a different day. And now, now there's an opportunity to potentially do those kind of things again, right? And so what was interesting was that
again, to people like Travis and everyone in American League for doing that thing you did to me, like you've done it every time for 10 years. So when the league expanded with more teams, that was an overwhelmingly good thing because X, Y, and Z. When the league contracts, well, that's a good thing for reasons A, B, and C. So what happens, Monty, is when viewership changes so that where it goes down on the weekends, then obviously we should move to weekdays. That'll make it go up. What's that? It's gone down again. We'll go back to weekends, you idiot. Now it's gone down again on weekends. Well, it's better than weekdays, wouldn't it? Like, I'm so sick of that. You are aware, America, the country, just saying things are awesome and positive isn't the same as like doing things tangibly that makes them awesome and obvious. I don't know if like optics has completely consumed your whole culture, but you actually can't just like go, this is great. Basically, Travis Gafford just sits there after everything in NA and goes, this is fine. Mark, what are you doing? This is fine. Like, just garbage. Because everyone told me, Monty, that was the change, that the weekdays would make this explode and go.
They said the data said that the viewership would go up on weekdays. It went down. I mean, maybe they were right because it went down on weekends now, right?
Monty, I'm so sick and tired of this because we put the deck chairs into a flying V. We're still heading towards an iceberg. We make the deck chairs into sort of an opera arc. The iceberg's still fucking coming. And you're not going to believe this. We've removed half the chairs. We're about to hit a bloody iceberg, Monty. What's going on here, guys? Wait a minute. I know what. Let's get Mark Z to tell us what order to put the chairs in. Phew. Crisis averted. It's so ridiculous, the LCS.
That's why I said on our other show that it doesn't matter what Mark Z does because it's the job of being commissioner is a poison chalice and it's in the death spiral that can't be stopped.
And as he's drinking from the fucking poison chalice, Travis is like, that should be me drinking from that. That should be me dying a glorious death at Riot Sands. That was my death. I can't handle it. It's so stupid, isn't it? So stupid.
So let me tell you guys about the actual viewership. So LCS Spring 2024 to Spring 2023, Week 1 comparison. Now, there were higher peak viewership, Thorin, which is very interesting. Peak viewership on Cloud9 versus NRG was 191,000 compared to 178,000 for Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves a year previously. But Thorin, wait, there's more. Because esports charts is so helpful and astute when it comes to breaking this down.
Context have they put
so I'm going to read this to you. They literally have like an information bubble that's separate, like that's highlighted in the article to tell you why this is the case. Hold on, let me find it. So they have, it's also crucial that they added some co-streamers from different languages. So Baiano, the Brazilian streamer who streams in Portuguese, now has LCS LCS co-streaming.
Oh, okay.
But
did he just add 100K himself or something stupid? Is that the joke?
So here we go. You ready? Watching North American teams' games on Baiano's channel remained at 20 to 30K peak viewers. This situation occurred on January 21st when switching from one region to another. Brazilian viewers lingered a bit on Baiano's broadcast. As a result, by the time the match between Cloud9 and 100 Thieves began on his channel, there were 63,000 peak viewers. Although this number was reduced to 28,000 peak viewers by the end of the match.
So, even Brazilians were like, I'm not watching this shit. Turn it off.
It is thanks to this lag that LCS Spring 2024 was able to achieve a good peak online viewership. So it is literally Baiano switching to LCS actually halved his own stream's viewers and caused a spike at the very start of the broadcast that then dropped off. Also, They have a good.
Guys, the point there is the viewership that's being counted at the best point are actually people who actively didn't want to watch this match. I mean, the joke is, I can give you an analogy. In Counter-Strike, there was once a time when we did the first E-League major where it briefly mega broke the record for viewers, Monty, but that's just because it ran slightly over. And when it went slightly over on TBS, it began like the next show, and all the people who expected to watch that show for a second tuned in. And so for like 1 minute, we hit this crazy spike, but it was sort of fugazi, like we're saying here. Like, we were even told probably, like, don't say too much about it. It's not that great. Like, exactly, it's the same scenario. Yeah.
So basically, he dragged in a bunch of Portuguese-speaking League of Legends fans who I guess were watching CB LOL, and then he switched over to LCS, and then they immediately fucked off. So in reality,
this technique could work though, because logically, here's all you need to do, guys. You have to just lie and trick people into watching, and then you get the viewership. So here's an idea. You could say something like, guys, coming up in half an hour, I'll be doing, and then you say something like, for example, Doublelift Monty on his core stream could do a second face reveal. He could show his other face, the two-faced side, whatever, you get the joke. It's all good. It's all good. Listen, I'll never be appreciated in my time like a prophet in his own country. I understand.
We have to ignore the peak viewership because realistically, we should remove 30,000 viewers from that. So it really should have been a peak of about 160, which would have been 20,000 lower than 178,000.
If you are a sponsor of the LCS, the 30,000 Brazilian people don't help you, mate. They're not buying your products. I'm just going to put that out there. They're not buying your products, mate. Well, so it's all good.
That's the other problem, is that by adding co-streamers that are not in America, it doesn't help them sell advertisers at all. Like having a bunch of Portuguese-speaking Brazilians is not what the advertisers that have signed on want, right? So it's disingenuous, and these are meaningless numbers, effectively. Now, here we go, Thorin. The average viewer declined from 127,000 to 116,000. So we have a pretty substantial drop there. And hours watched, this is, average viewers is actually fair to compare to a certain degree. But the hours watched, 1.5 million last year, 1.08 million this year. It should have gone down. You'd expect it to decline by, 20%, because there's one fewer match, right? But this is more than that, right? It's a pretty big decline in hours watched. And here's a little nugget from esports charts. What's crucial to the league is that the number of what's crucial to the league is that the average number of viewers has decreased by 9%. So the average viewers have decreased by 9%. A direct indication that the league continues to lose its audience despite innovation from organizers and extended community casting, which now includes content creators from other regions. This continuous decrease is particularly evident in the dynamics of English language broadcasts, as in the one that advertisers care about, the primary language in LCS. English broadcasts gathered 23% fewer viewers in the first week compared to a similar period in LCS spring 2023. So what you should know, Thorin, is that had they not added non-English streamers, this would be an even bigger decline. It would be even worse by a lot. Like this thing. And by the way, I don't want to take away from the innovations that were made. Getting to the games faster. Great. Like truly, like the broadcast, I looked through some of it. It feels a lot better to watch. I like the direction they're taking the product. So like credit to Mark Z and the ideas that the producers have had. But it doesn't fucking matter when the numbers are decreasing at this rate. Right?
Oh, no, I mean, let's be real. The problem you have in here is doing even if they changed something for next week, but you made it their best week ever, that's not going to make people who've already chosen not to tune in. And it's definitely not going to make people who dislike other aspects stop tuning out. So yeah, the real problem is like, you're not going to turn it all around doing this. I mean, one other thing this shows as well, by the way, is it's not as simple as just saying like, yeah, but what about like the teams in the league? Like in theory, this is a way better league. Like if we actually talk about the matches, the squads have like reformed very well. There's a very competitive group of teams at the top. By the way, you've even got big star names like Jensen's back in, fucking FlyQuest. Like it's actually, there's all these positive markers. Like, the joke is I'm actually looking forward to watching the season myself, unlike last year, but that doesn't change. Like the problem I think think people always miss with big trends, Monty, is macro trends aren't affected by tiny personal things like that. They're sort of like these giant forces that move through the market and the culture that are really hard to predict and sort of navigate. So the problem here is I feel this is a compounding issue where people over the years just care less and less about LCS. Like, I don't know how you turn that around in a moment. Well, it seems hard at this point in time.
We can just compare it for you guys because, again, helpfully at the bottom of this article, which I will link below in the YouTube video, ES Charts has done this for us. So,
right.
Here you go. Here are the leagues that have started, that have completed their first week. LCK, hours watched, 8.6 million. That not including Chinese. Now, I know you guys can say, oh, there's no Chinese broadcast right now, but there are a bunch of Chinese co-streamers. Whatever, guys, whatever. 8.6 million, LCK. LEC, 7.4 million. CB LOL, 1.9 million. LCS, 1.067.
Wait a minute, LEC 7 times more?
Yes.
Fucking hell. Dude, you remember this. I hope fans understand. One of the reasons why the EU broadcast also became like the fucking piggyback giver to the fucking LCS is because LCS was considered not only bigger, but it was always going to be bigger. Like the viewership was always way more important. Dude, the idea LEC 7 times more, that is insane.
Now they did
have mental.
They did have an extra day of broadcast because they do 3 days a week, and they did have 5 games a day. But so it was 15 games compared to 8, but there's a over 7 times difference in terms of hours watched. Now here we go. Peak viewership. LCK, 1.1 million. LEC, 740,000. CB LOL, 246,000. LCS, 191,000.
Fuck, it's the same again. It's almost the same ratio breakdown. Fucking hell.
Average viewers. LCK, 325,000. LEC, 400,000. LEC has fewer matches than LCK, obviously, fewer games.
Right.
So they have the highest, non-Chinese average viewership. CB LOL, 157,000. LCS, 114,000.
All right, here's my joke, Monty. What you need to do is a lot of people think that it's unfair, Monty. You know how in the past it used to be Europeans complaining that the business of esports is unfair? Because famously, if you are Steve Arhansett from Team Liquid, you can get fucking Honda that sponsors all of America and you can get a giant budget. But famously, if you're SK in Germany, maybe you can only contact Honda Germany and you get a smaller budget. You know the way they used to complain like that? Well, now you can complain the opposite way, Monty, because now Americans can say, yeah, but the problem is the regional scene means you can have a French-speaking caster who appeals to French people and who want to hear that more than English, so you get more viewers there. Then you get a Spanish one. Well, no, here's the thing, guys. You're wrong. You could do that in America. What you need to understand is both language and culture. So what you need is a hillbilly caster who's like, hey, blah, 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 blah. You need that guy. He'll do it. Then you need like a New York art whore who's just sort of like, what the hell's going on here? Like, guys, what you into that guy? That's so last year or whatever. Like, then you need like the LA fucking like whatever, like soccer mom who's with all like crystals and shit, and she's like, fucking, I don't know about the way the country's going. So essentially, and then you need finally, I want an Appalachian broadcast, just really hard-working people who don't say a lot, carry a lot of trauma inside, but you wouldn't want to fuck with them in a war, would you? So I think the regional broadcasts are there. Come Riot, hit me up. I can tell you how to make this work. Lumberjacks in the Northwest. You think that's a market? Oregon, what's going on with Oregon people? Anyway, I thought that was pretty good. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean, look. This is bad. This is very bad, and the blow the blow will be softened by the fact.
I'm giving it's pretty good, mate. They're about to hit the iceberg. This is like how much longer can this keep going for?
Yeah, and again, it doesn't matter.
I've got a question for you. Let me flip a question to you, Monty. Let me ask you this as if it was the Four Horsemen, but I want to ask you specifically as somebody who's been around the North American League of Legends scene a long time. If it's the case, if we tie together 2 pieces of info, you know the story earlier about Riot making loads of money from esports. If eventually, Monty, essentially, that famous saying that when the fucking tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. It sort of exposes who was full of shit. Right? Here's the problem, Monty. At what point of reaching fuck all viewership does Riot have to actively do an Overwatch/Valorant combined method and say, you know what? We actually need this league to run. So we're going to fuck the fees. We're going to pay you to be in the LCS. So if you're Cloud9, not only don't leave, please stay. Here's $1 million. When does that happen? Do you think that happens? Surely eventually it has to be on the table.
like I said,
did they shut down LCS entirely? What do you think?
I think the only way to do this, like I said in the last show, is to do buyouts for the teams. But unfortunately, the buyouts are going to be super high. So you can actually combine like Brazil, LLA. You could make VCT Americas, but for League of Legends, and then you switch to that partnership model, which is much, much better, by the way. Yeah, much, much better. But again, like I said last time, the problem with doing that is that as soon as the teams hear about a switch to the model, they're going to want to hold on to their slots because they want to be part of a better business ecosystem. Yes. They're like, oh, you're changing the business model. Well, I too would like to be part of a better business model. So now it's going to cost $30 million instead of $6 million, which is what they paid to EG to quietly fuck off, right? EG and Golden Guardians. So I'm not sure that there is going to be, the cost of that is going to be astronomical. So I think Riot would probably just rather quiet quit on LCS and just not spend money or time on it, rather than try and make that a reality. Because the reality of doing that would be much too expensive.
Do you know the silliest thing about all this? Even though what I'm about to say, I will say, if you're a casual fan, understand, no team org likes what I'm about to say. They would not agree. I'm talking if we look at the whole scene. Bearing in mind at the moment, as long as these devs sit on the IP rights and are just gods within their games and can't be questioned or pushed back against, and no one can do a league without them, the joke is the actual most efficient way for a league to run right now would literally be, Monty, that the league just owned the teams anyway, and instead it's more like, look, they wouldn't want to do this, but instead people like Jack and Steve do their same jobs now, but they just don't own the team. Like, they get sponsorships for the team, and they get paid, and they GM the team, and they field it with staff, so they do everything they're good at, but they don't have to worry about the finances, because right now the finances is what doesn't make sense, and the only one who makes the money is Riot anyway. So the joke is that even would, if you wanted the actual scene to be better, in theory be better. It's just obviously those team owners wouldn't say, yes, Thorin, I want to give away all my ownership, and they obviously wouldn't get that. But actually that is one of the only logical ways I think you can make the league run, because they are obviously awesome at selling the sponsorships and doing the fucking player transfers. The problem is just at the moment the spigot of money the joke is, the obvious angle, Monty, Riot's just doing the old trickle down one, but they've done that like meme where it's like they've got so many glasses it just never trickles down off the edge, it just goes into their next glass. Like, essentially they never get the trickle down, they just take all the money themselves, don't they? That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's a bummer, because I do think that legitimately a lot of the LCS changes are good. I think the content changes are good. I think the integration of the pro players into the broadcast more is good. I think the shortening the downtime between games has worked out really well. Yeah, like I don't have very many complaints about the product. And like the product was shit garbage a couple years ago when they, especially during COVID, when they had that like,
that was the worst
Alienware dome. It was just cringe as fuck, and it was terrible. But it's gotten a lot better, and I have enjoyed what I've seen from it, but it doesn't solve the systemic issues that they created year over year over year. It doesn't solve the problem of TSM not being in this league anymore, and the reason TSM left, guys, was because the business model sucked. And if the business model sucked for the most popular team, how could it possibly be good for anybody else? Riddle me that. They were selling the most merch. They were selling the biggest sponsorships because they had the largest fan base, and they just quit. They just fucking quit. They quit slowly. They tried for one big swing with like the Sword Art team. It was a clown fiesta because it's TSM. And then from there, they just did budget rosters, and then they just pieced the fuck out.
Monty, imagine being Doublelift, Bjergsen, who, if people don't know, sort of got fucked in the worst possible way, because what happened was he signed his big contract with TSM right before a bunch of the like inflation of the orgs came in. So famously, when he signed his monster contract, it lasted like 2 or 3 years. But the point was, he wasn't close to the highest paid player in the league, and people came in after who got like the millions each year, right? You sat there for years, by the way, winning championships for TSM, the main focal piece, getting paid like all right money, but not the best money. And then right at the end of the org, when you've left, they just take all the millions that realistically could have been yours and just give them to 2 former Flash Wolves players, and then let them just fuck off out the league completely. Like, I served this team for years, and then last minute, 2 literal from the LMS just walk in and take your bags of money and just fuck off. Like, that's the ultimate iniquity of all. Bjergsen got absolutely wrecked by that org, mate. And after he'd done that bullshit coaching year too. What a shit end to an org as well. Like, because the worst thing is as well, because they had those last years, Monty, where they were like a bottom feeder, you don't even now, sadly, people's recency bias will kick in. They won't even remember TSM as a great org. This org used to like permanently be in the finals, guys. Like a bad split for them really was to make like playoffs and lose first round. Like this used to be the fucking NA org. Like the way they left is actually, it's with such a whimper instead of a bang, as the old cliche goes.
Well,
although the joke is Reggie probably tried to pay Bang, the washed up AD carry, probably $7 million to play, but he just was, sorry, I can't be bothered playing it. Yeah, don't worry about it.
I mean, the plus side of this, Thorin, is that if we get more companies like Shopify and the LCS, those are the companies that can actually hold Riot accountable for their garbage business practices.
Oh, true. Yeah. True.
You know,
let's get Alibaba Dragons. Let's get them in the LEC. Let's get fucking
Apple,
here's an
Microsoft.
Start, here's a fun one for you. I'll notice people love to make fun of this about the LEC, but the one I wonder about is this, mate. What if the Saudis buy into LCS? There's spots available, mate. They have money. They would have been. What if they bought into LCS? That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Do you like my meme I did the other day, by the way, where I took that meme of all those like fucking like globalist tech guys laughing, like, you know, the one where it's like, you know, we told them we did it for this. I took that and then I put, because I thought it was a banger, I put, guys, they changed the region's name from Europe to EMEA, which stands for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And you thought they weren't going to do business with the Saudis. Like,
yeah.
They're telling you we're going to have Middle Eastern and African teams
or
in
the
this
Qataris,
shit,
or the Emiratis.
Like, who else is there? Have I missed like some secret super duper African people who are going to invest in the league? Like, what are you talking about? It has to be them, of course. I know.
So yeah, I think it'll be only a matter of time before we have a Saudi team, at least in LEC. I would say at least in LEC.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but clearly they changed their name for a reason, guys, and that was the reason.
Oh, that reminds me, we can reference something about that. So Richard did just publish, if you didn't see, guys. Are you ready? Richard managed to somehow get like behind the scenes information showing that the Riot people internally, who were the LGBT like leader people and like on that side, were the ones arguing in favor of this deal. And are you ready for the maddest angle ever? They were using that copium I told you on a past episode, where it was sort of like that if you do business with them, you like actually can influence them, and it'll be like and they were even trying to argue some insane angle, Monty, along the lines of like, wasn't it something like that, like this would even help gay people inside that country, which is like, because obviously the whole point is they're the ones killing them. Like, but yeah, go on, read it up for me. Read it up.
I'll link this. I'll it's on a Substack. I'll link it below again with everything else. We got a lot of links down there this week, guys, but you should look at this. It's so funny because remember that the fundamental reason why Saudi Arabia is doing this is because they are trying to create public association with companies like Riot Games so that in people's mind, Saudi Arabia as an entity is normalized, right?
Yes.
So if anything, it works exactly the opposite direction whenever anybody partners with them, because that's one fewer person who will call them out. And it's one fewer entity that will, in fact, just go ahead and make people think that everything they're doing is fine, or that it can't be as bad as people say, or that they are trying to change, which they are not, by the way, very clearly not. So Richard has some Slack messages from the Rainbow Rioters group.
You already know this is fire when that's what it's called. So hit me with
which is like Riot has these internal communities, and I guess like the LGBTQIA plus community is called Rainbow Rioters. And so some of these people, it's unclear whether they have, I think they're just random employees who are like chiming in as part of the Rainbow Rioters group. I don't think it's somebody who's like in the esports department. That's not the sense I get, but maybe it is. Anyway, so here are some responses. I'm going to read them. Hi, folks. I've been hawkishly following this thread. As a leader of Rainbow Rioters who has helped drive some of the Pride content we do for players, I wanted to offer some context. When we talk about Pride content, there are enormous complexities when thinking about localization and publishing it when it comes to every single country that our game is played in. You can imagine the spreadsheets and local cultural input that is needed for such a project. Thorin, just imagine the spreadsheets. The Pride spreadsheets.
Is there like a tab on the spreadsheets where when it's like Korea, Iran, it's like, do not put anything gay on the screen? Like, what is this spreadsheet there? Can I see this one? Yeah, keep going.
When I think about the countries where LGBTQ plus issues are hot topics, there's a gradient of how much we can help queer players in that country feel recognized. Sure, I would like it better if we could promote inclusivity and have all of our LGBTQ plus content on full display in every country equally. But that's not the way the world works. And consequently, we must find other ways to push the envelope. Oh, they're being so sneaky, Thorin. They're pushing the envelope. In some countries, we get to release Pride emotes, but under different localizations, such as Festival of Colors. In some countries, we choose different images for publishing articles. I can't handle this. That only show queer characters hugging instead of kissing. We try to meet the country where their viewpoints are at, but pushing it forward by a few degrees. That way, we don't alienate players and also help LGBTQ plus players feel seen to the best of our ability. My understanding is that one key difference for how this event will be different than some past events that had cultural sensitivity concerns is that we will not accept content restrictions in our games. So I have to provide context on this. Previously, in the very early days of League of Legends, there was an event, I believe, in Iran. And in Iran, they wouldn't let the players play any of the female champions. So that is what that line is referring to right there. So yes. They did run an event. And we talked about it at the time. This was like, I don't know, maybe 2013 or something like that, 2014. It was hilarious when this happened.
Sure.
The organizers or the country can't ban Cassante from being played in the tournament for any reason, including the fact that he's gay. The same goes for other content regarding female characters or other demographics. So imagine a team of champions that imagine, if you will, Thorin, in your mind's eye, a team of champions that consists of Graves, Twisted Fate, Cassante, Diana, and Leona. All champions with queer identities, all playable in this tournament, hosted in Saudi Arabia. This is one example of how we make a difference while meeting the country where you're at. Now, guys, I don't know what to tell you. This is clearly incredibly delusional. So first off, how does it help provide any kind of pushing the envelope if all of the representation that those characters are gay is not available in that country? So therefore, nobody knows when you play Cassante?
Oh, no, this is what's crazy, Monty.
That Cassante
if people
is gay?
don't get it, this is a perfect example of using corporate speak to lie and say the opposite of what the impression you're giving it. So I'll run through those three for you, Monty. I'll do it really quick. So when they say, oh, we might not be allowed to do Pride emotes, but we do a festival of colors. So you expressly don't do Pride then. So in other words, the concept of Pride is you're proud of your lifestyle. So you're going to tell everyone this is your lifestyle. Instead, you're going to secretly do that in a way that would only work if expressly it wasn't known that that was the meaning. So what you're saying is you're not going to represent that. So then here's the second one. Similar kind of, you'll notice it's a similar little sort of fucking bait and switch, Monty. So then they go, we might not be able to show these characters kissing. So a rare actual overt example that would show that the characters were gay or had an alternative sexuality. Instead, we'll show them hugging, right? In none of these countries is hugging illegal. In fact, I'll give you one that might actually blow some of your minds. In Korea, a country which, by the way, is not an openly gay society, the joke is it's actually part of straight culture to hold hands if you're men and boys, and even hug sometimes there. So already Riot again is using your cultural expectations against you. Nobody in Iran or whatever will see two characters hugging and go, wow, there's gay shit in the game. And they'll just go, whatever, it doesn't really matter. So that's already fake. And then the last one is actually the most disgusting of all, because you've nailed it, Monty. They phrased that, I will guarantee this as speculation, but just as a person, I think this. I am almost sure, Monty, they phrased that very carefully about like the in-game elements to sound like if you've heard that in other countries they don't say a character's gay or they take out the cutscenes in Overwatch, it sounds like they're saying they won't let that happen, which would be a big pushback, by the way. If you had events in like China and you showed this stuff, that would be fucking enormous. By the way, it might be a massive problem for you. But as you said, what it really means is we just won't let people not allow you to pick Cassante. We won't, by the way, actually flex the fact that his character's gay. And no, we won't do any of that. Of course not, you fool. Why would you do that? But we'll just let you pick him in the game. Even though that has not. Remember, guys, in the game, it's not a single player game. You're not encountering a story. He doesn't have like a voice line when he kills someone where it goes, I'm here, I'm queer, and I'm proud of it. Deal with it. Like it's just a champion in the game. So what's mad about this whole thing is this.
That'd be amazing,
someone
actually.
who claims to be in favor of all the LGBT stuff is telling you to your face internally that if we just essentially hide all of the gay stuff and don't make it obvious, then actually we're heroes, are you ready, who actually represent gay people in that country, even though we are expressly doing business with the people oppressing them. It's actually really gross. I agree, it's funny on one level, but it's also really fucking like behind it. There's a real dark cynicism. Yes. That's the fucking devil in your ear, guys, telling you like, just give in, just do what they say. Like that's fucking gross, mate. That's internally messaged. Come on, boys.
Well, I mean, this person is like gaslighting themselves, which is so fucking incredible, right? Because like your point. It doesn't matter, like, if you know that something is a certain way, but the other person doesn't know that thing is that thing.
You wouldn't know anything about Cassante, right?
Like, how does language work, okay? The purpose of it is to transmit ideas to other people. But if they don't know what this object is, then they can't possibly, it's not pushing the envelope and sharing a message, because the message is empty. Right?
Yes.
You're seeing one thing through your perception, and this person's seeing another thing, but they can't see the whole picture because you are actually preventing them from knowing the thing that you want them to know. So it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. And just straight up, the reason why we have posts like this, Thorin, is because these people are undergoing a fundamental mental conflict because they know that this is wildly illegal and punished by potentially death, okay? Right? In Saudi Arabia. And so these are people who would be punished in this country were they open about their sexuality. But they have to cope with this factor because they know that the only way to justify, like to cause this conflict to resolve is to leave Riot Games. They must leave their job.
Cognitive dissonance, yes.
The cognitive dissonance there means that they must quit because Riot Games, their employer, is partnering with somebody who would do horrible things to them, right?
Yeah.
And so in order to do this, you have to create some reason in your mind to satisfy that cognitive dissonance that isn't, well, I'm just going to quit my cushy job because, I mean, this is appalling. Like, it's an ethically appalling thing to do.
And by the way, before anyone gets into, because another thing people love to do is go and look up the letter of the law, Monty, and claim like, no, they've changed this, no, they don't do that. No, here's the problem. The problem is, what do you allow in your society? So I'll give you two examples. You know, when it's been reported by people who've looked into the Saudi thing that they've shot people at the border, do you imagine that was a government decree written on a piece of paper? Like, we agree to kill someone, but that was obviously never fucking marked down. They just did that and let it happen. So similarly, I'll just throw this out there. I saw something recently, which is very alarming, that apparently in some Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia and apparently like Dubai and stuff, sometimes they'll do stuff like have someone from a totally different ethnicity, like African or something, as like the housekeeper. And they've done like insane stuff that you would think come from stories of like fucking like Egyptian emperors and stuff, Monty, and pharaohs. Like they're doing stuff like just for laughs, knocking them out of windows and stuff and letting them just die. Like, again, do you think that's ever prosecuted? Of course it isn't. Essentially what we're talking about here is in this scenario, they'd probably just turn a blind eye. So even if they changed, by the way, all the laws in the country, all they'd have to do is just not arrest people who do certain things to these people. It's why ages ago when I brought up that thing about LS and the Korean culture, everyone were mad at me, Monty, because they were like, but officially this isn't true. And it's like, yeah, but the question is, what's the day-to-day life like? Like, they obviously just turn a blind eye or they tell you, just don't say you're gay there. Yeah. Like, that's a soft version of it. In this country, like you're saying, there are very real consequences that can happen. And it's definitely not like, this is why I hate that whole take of like, it's all changing though and it's great now. Well, first of all, it hasn't changed enough. And secondly, it isn't good now. And then thirdly, secondly, why make that your angle? Like, the weirdest part about this is this. That's why I know that you're right about it. It has to be that the person's battling themselves as they say this. Yes. Because the real angle, if you actually just want to take the money and do business, is ignore this angle. Just go, hey, we're just here to do esports, guys. We're just doing business. If you did that angle, it's way more effective. Instead, they're trying to simultaneously do business with Saudi Arabia, but also convince themselves it's not only okay, they are heroes for doing it. That's the craziest angle. It shows how, at the end of the day, Monty, every individual does need to believe they're a good person.
But this is this is part of the Riot cult. They have to believe that they're changing the world in some way, right? And that this isn't just a cold business decision about what they're going to do. Here's another one. There's another quote here. So another person chimes in. Thank you for addressing this. As a Rainbow Rioter, not representing everybody, obviously, I think that our participation has net positive effect here. It can't. You are losing in this exchange. In this exchange of PR, you are fucking losing. Let's be clear. We have a large community in MENA region, so it's Middle East, North Africa. That's what that means, which includes LGBTQIA+ individuals and women. We know for a fact that not all players feel safe enough to come out in certain countries. We have those in EMEA as well. And they are engaging with our games and even playing professionally. By participating in the events in the region, we can promote our values indirectly and show support to all the players, including those from underrepresented groups. We also have an opportunity to have positive impact on the gaming community as a whole, especially if we work around the messaging, why we participate, etc., to address any concerns. Players always appreciate when we are being transparent and honest as much as we can. Always happy to chat about any concerns or if any help with positioning is needed from the regional point of view, and if you folks find it helpful, heart emoji. Like,
you know what's part so creepy, because that almost implies, by the way, if you're going to be like persecuted for being gay, just contact a rioter. How fucking out of pocket. You've got a team on how you daft cunt. You can't actually do anything. What are you talking about? And what a mad statement that is at the end there.
I mean, just think about it. Just think about this logically. So you are a fucking video game company, and your idea here is that if you allow people in Saudi Arabia to play your video game and see characters that they don't know are gay within that game, that somehow you're going to indirectly promote your values? And let's pretend you did that for a second. Explain to me how this results in a changing of laws in Saudi Arabia from the governing king. Like, explain to me how this actually changes anything, because I can explain very clearly to you why you working with them makes their crimes less bad to the general public of the liberal world.
Here's another part that these people are making a mistake on. I made this point in a past episode. They're acting. Look, I'm going to now pretend that I accept the premise, Monty, that countries like America are a constitutional democracy sort of / republic, and that voting's real and elections matter. But if we accept that premise, you know, that bullshit sugar pill we all pretend is real. So if we pretend that's real, at least in America, on some level, you could claim that if you cause a cultural change, it could also change the leadership, right? It could change who they vote for. In a system that is essentially autocratic, Monty, from the top down, with literal royalty being the ones that rule the country, even if you did this for these people, how would it ever affect the guy at the top? And then, are you ready for the punchline? You're doing the deal with the guy at the top, and he is telling you, in exchange for this deal, you will not do any of these things. And you're going, yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full, sir. Thank you for the Saudi money. So the joke is, you're not only not changing anything, you're definitely not, because you're working with the guy who autocratically from the top down enforces all the culture in their society. Well, like, the real joke is, even if every Saudi citizen agreed with Riot, it wouldn't matter if the fucking top-down people said no. Well, and you're working with those people.
And even if you did change the culture, like, it doesn't change the laws that make it illegal to do any of these things or to be this way, right? So you could, I guess, know more, but you couldn't actually engage in any kind of behavioral change or societal change, because society still says you can't do it and that it's very illegal to do these things. So I think what's so hilarious about this is that in my mind...
One last thing as well. By the way, also, if you are actually someone in that region, despite that thing they said there about, you know, contact us if you have any problems with positioning, don't do do that. And I'm going to tell you right now why you don't do that. Because I'll tell you another thing that I could see this story coming out in the future, Monty, and it'll be really fucking sad if it ever does, is those stories about how all those people who used Twitter said things against the government, got like put in prison and fucked up, right? There's a world, I'm telling you right now, because this happened with Twitter, if people don't know, that because Twitter is Saudi owned, supposedly they used Twitter, Monty, to track down people who were like dissidents, I think maybe even in other countries, and then like punish them and fuck with them basically. And that was part of the track. Here's the thing I'll tell you right now. I wouldn't put it past Riot that if the Saudi government came to them, like hand over the chat logs of these people, that they wouldn't do it. And if they did, by the way, you might have outed yourself then. That's why I would say don't do this, by the way. Do not trust fucking video game companies with your life. Like, if you have to take care of yourself and protect yourself in that country, don't think that some idiot Riot who shows a flag is going to help you. They aren't. The second that they're in trouble, mate, they're off in a fucking cushy office in LA. They're not going to do anything for you, mate. They're going to say it now to make themselves feel good. But sadly, like, you will end up like the end of that. There's a banger reference at the end of that movie, Three Kings. If you think they're going to help you, they will just fucking bail, mate. Banger reference there, by the way. You seen that movie? Banger reference.
The analogy I'll make, Thorin, is like the rioters seem to believe that they're building some sort of Trojan horse, and that
it's mad, isn't it? Yeah,
they're like sitting there like Odysseus is sitting there, right? He's like, oh guys, I got this great idea. We're gonna build this horse, and then we're gonna go inside it, and the rest of us are gonna leave, but we're just gonna sail like a little bit away, and then guys, when they roll it into the city, we're gonna pop out in the middle of the night and open the gates, and everybody's gonna come in, and we're gonna win the war. Yeah, go us. Except the reality of this situation is that they build the horse, the Trojans look at it and just walk away and go back inside their castle, and then that's it. That's what's actually going to happen.
Here's the problem, Monty. It's more like they did the first part, like you said. They sold that idea. Then what they did is they crammed all the gay activists inside of the Trojan horse, and they pushed it inside Saudi Arabia. But then because they know if they actually did anything, they'd be fucked, and they'd push the horse back out, they just have to now never leave the horse, stay inside the horse, and pretend to actually be a giant horse. Exactly. So there you go. That's it. That's all they can do now. Or they die. Yeah, or they die immediately. So
I guess they got a horse in there, but nobody knows what the horse is. Nobody knows what the horse is at the end of the day, and nobody gives a shit, and they just think it's a horse, and it's like a cool statue or something. That's a great completion of the analogy. It is fucking crazy that they think that this is going, like, guys, I just don't know how to say this any other way. The net negative of PR here is just not worth it.
Oh, it's crazy.
The price that you pay on your soul for doing this is much more severe. But of course, these people are not going to say that, because the only possible action that logically you could resolve your cognitive dissonance with is simply to say, I cannot work with a company that clearly doesn't value my identity to this degree. Therefore, I must quit my job. And they want to keep, they want the free coffee and all the Riot perks, and they want the cushy job, and they don't want to have to think about this.
You do make a good point, though. This is why Monty actually inadvertently proves it's a cult. Because the joke is, of course, to a rioter, if you even interact with Riot on even a vaguely regular basis, you will have to become completely consumed by them, and all of your thoughts, opinions, and cultural values will just immediately mirror them. So to them, it's totally logical that this will happen with anyone else who encounters them. To them, Riot is a Lovecraftian force that just turns you mad the second you even encounter them in your perception. So they don't understand, believe it or not, Monty, some of these Saudis have stronger cultural values than rioters, believe it or not. Crazy idea, innit? I know. Crazy idea. I also just can't believe this is like, mate, if we went back in time, Monty, 10 plus years, this would be like a bad Esports Express article, like Riot Games, literal like rainbow rioters to do deal with Saudi Arabian autocratic government to try and win them. Like, this would be like a bad meme headline, wouldn't it? It's real. It's a real story. I never even could have predicted. I was pretty cynical about esports my whole career. I never could have predicted this, guys. This is so out of pocket. It's so ridiculous, isn't it?
I guess when it started happening to the Premier League, we should have known, Thorin. No, we should have known. In retrospect,
in the cup, unfortunately, yes.
In retrospect, all the signs were there in many ways.
Yeah.
When we saw Live Golf come for the PGA, we should have been like, we're definitely next.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's tragic. It's tragic, really. But anyway, that's something, of course, you only hear on Summoning Insight because you can't hear it anywhere else, guys.
See it on the subreddit because of the old Richard Lewis convenient Reddit ban again that just happens to save Riot us for the millionth time. Weird how that works, isn't it? Yeah, weird how that one works, isn't it? Yeah.
All right. Well, we could talk. We did get sidetracked by that.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it, guys, because it is actually extremely important to understand how Riot internally sees this issue. Because I, at least personally, find it very alarming the way that they are reacting to this internally. And it shows that there's a big difference between what happened with the Neon stuff a few years ago and what's happening now. Which is crazy to me that they could have successfully pushed back the Neon.
I want to see what you think of this. Dude, after seeing what's happened now and that story Richard put at the time that showed that apparently Riot themselves were always happy with the Neon deal. They just didn't like the bad PR of all the LEC stuff coming out. I'm just going to say it right now. You know what? There's a lot of people I do like and respect on that LEC broadcast. I don't think that Neon thing even happens if Frostgurn isn't in that room. I'll give her credit in this one sense. At least she did have the balls to do it. She would at least cause some problems. Even if she wouldn't always follow through and tell you publicly who did stuff. Sure, she didn't complete it. But the difference is, I think the other ones just went in solidarity with her, mate. I actually think some of these people may not. I can't know. I'm speculating, obviously. But I don't think it would have been as big a deal. I think they might have expressed concerns. But I think if it happened, it would have happened back then. So that's also another reason why it doesn't surprise me at all. This is going to happen now. Like you said earlier, Monty, it already could have happened. Remember, Falcons tried to buy Astralis. Dude, I think they're just going to be in the league next year, whatever the next sale is. It's just inevitable at this point. Like, it's obvious Riot does not have a problem working with any of these countries. I mean, why they would... Here's the thing I'll never really understand, Monty. Aside from for PR reasons, and that obviously can eventually be superseded by financial reasons, that you need the money to run the league. Aside from PR reasons, why would a Chinese company care? Because I don't care what anyone tells me. Tencent is Riot Games. Why are we pretending it's still like a bunch of people who did a cool little startup in LA? Like, it isn't. Like, it's a bunch of Chinese people. And spoiler, if you know, the Chinese, by the way, deal with everyone. They're doing shit right now in Africa and in the Middle East. They don't give a fuck about that. By the way, they also do business with countries that use like slave labor and all sorts of shit themselves. So the idea they would ever care is ridiculous. Like, if I look at it now, the worst thing is not only will it happen, but there won't even be the pushback, in my opinion. It'll be very mild. Like, here's the thing, you know what? I'll give people credit based on their past actions. I could believe, by the way, Monty, there might be a world where maybe someone like Medic might imply he doesn't like this. So, some people have put themselves out there and shown they might do that. Some of the others, I think, will just go along with it. They'll know which way their bread's buttered, as we say in England. They'll just have to go along with it. If they want to work in the industry, they'll just think, right, this is the compromise I have to make, right?
Well, it's also just going to creep in over time, because the start of this is, oh, we're just going to have this tournament in Saudi Arabia, and you can choose not to go to Saudi Arabia. And then it becomes, oh, they own an LEC team, right? And so, well, I guess I can just request...
I'll give you a prediction. If they send teams like from LCS and LEC to Esports World Cup, Monty, here's a prediction for you. It'll all be messaging like this. It won't even be about how good the tournament is. It'll be, oh, we're treated so well here. Oh, look at this, like, luxurious things. It'll be all about, like, how incredible the culture in Saudi Arabia. That'll be there as well, mate. That'll be there, too.
Of course. And the Saudis know that, because when they invite people with big social media followings and they invite the teams, and the teams make documentary content, and they do treat them well. Like, I'm not saying they don't. They do, because that's part of the charm offensive that they deploy, so that they don't, like, all of this, mate, by the way, guys.
It's the same in China. If I went to an event in China in CSGO a few years ago, Monty, they would have me in the best hotel, you know, like the buffet with like every world cuisine. Yeah. But it's because they want me to go back and go, China's fucking amazing. Meanwhile, if I leave that hotel and go down one street, I see a guy in like the fucking gutter, like selling like cabbages for 1 cent or something. Like, that's the problem. They want me to see one part, but not the other part, obviously.
And guys, here's the reason they do this. And this is why, at a fundamental level, the thought that you can change them is so ridiculous, because the reason they do any of this stuff, any of it at all, is so that they don't have to change. They do it so they don't have to change. So by you agreeing to this, you are helping them actively not change the things that you don't like. That is what you are doing. There is no other interpretation.
Monty, are you ready for an even more cynical angle I'll apply? I would even argue if they really did just culturally change, then they could just actually change some of these laws, and then we wouldn't even have to be paid. We'd all just come and have events there. So I like it's even more cynical. They're essentially paying a higher premium, Monty, to not have to change the rules about gear shit. And so as a result, what you're actually doing, if you're Riot, is you're getting more money because this is absolutely abhorrent. Like, that's the craziest part about the morals of this. Is like, you're going to make more money as a result of that, because you probably just go add an extra zero. Okay, maybe I think about it. It's like that sort of shit, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, of course. They wouldn't have to pay a premium if they would just fucking change, would they? We wouldn't have to have these conversations. Oh my God. So wild that you think that the level of influence you can have in your silly ass little video game, Riot, is somehow like bigger institutions than you have already caved, right? The fucking entire golf professional circuit caved. That's way bigger than esports.
By the way, I'll just throw this out there as well. Let me know when, one, old Travi Gum has an opinion on this topic, or two, he asks a Rioter about it on camera. Gotta throw that out there. Because apparently Travis, by the way, is some sort of hero for asking his own friend questions that his friend chose not to answer. Apparently, here's what's hilarious about that, you dumb fucks. He didn't even do that to Mark Merrill. He essentially gave Mark Merrill layups all the time. And then when Mark Merrill started to fuck up an answer, he helped Mark Merrill quickly get out of his answer and say something different than what he was saying. So the joke is, the bare minimum would be to interview the LCS commissioner and ask him at least what's going on. And then by the way, he's totally in his one prerogative to say no comment or I'll waffle around it. But what that actually exposes that you guys don't get is, why was Travis not doing that in the past? When he used to actually, the real joke is this. That's the purpose of Mark Z right there, Monty, is to at least be able to not answer a question by answering it, if you get what I mean. The problem they had before was Jackie Felling couldn't even answer a question. She wouldn't even take questions. So we've gone one step up, guys. They now just tell us to our face a bunch of political bullshit that tells us nothing. We're not ever going to get the answer, but we're one step closer, and it's just because it's Mark's. That's it, Mark Z. There you go. What a fucking waste of time, eh? No, this topic, like you say, it'll only ever come up with this show, or the Four Horsemen. It will never be mentioned anywhere else in League of Legends, even though they're all the people that love to flex all the political angles. They'll never bring this topic up. Even though, here's the weirdest thing about it, Monty. If you're not doing anything wrong, why would it be a problem to just discuss it? Why couldn't it just be a topic of conversation? You know what I mean? If there's nothing sinister and wrong, and you support all the causes and you think this is okay, then why would it be a problem? It's actually conspicuous that it can't be talked about. It's why everyone knows deep down there's something wrong with this, There is something wrong with it, I
mean, imagine Riot putting out a statement where they're like, well, we recognize that Saudi Arabia has different values than us. We think we can softly message our values to them. Like, obviously they can't say that because they know it's not true, and it destroys the illusion, right? So funny. Oh, I don't know, man. Like it's deeply depressing because apparently nobody, even internally at Riot, is going to speak up against this right now because they know it's inevitable. And so now the copium is coming in so strong because they have to resolve the cognitive dissonance. And so now everybody's just high on the copium instead because they know there's no way that they can stop it.
What? They're literally doing the meme. People who are just sat draped in rainbow flags are going, what the hell? Now I love the government of Saudi Arabia. What are you talking about? What are you saying out loud, bro? What are you doing?
It's like I can change. You're like, This situation sure is awkward. It's I can fix MBS. I can fix him.
Monty, you're right. It's like a toxic female relationship. Yes. They're like, I can fix him, but it's MBS instead of like the boyfriend. I know. Like, this is some Riot can fix him. I know.
I can't take the direct approach, but if I softly hint for enough years, I can fix MBS.
Also, you could also do that meme, the guy in the street with his girlfriend looking back at the other girl. Could just be Riot, and then it has like, gay rights on the side, and you're just looking back like that Saudi Arabian bag. You're just looking back over your shoulder at that bag, that dirty bag. The saddest thing, by the way, I'll just actually, for once, I say it for once, it's on brand. I'll actually self-fillet, our auto-fillet show coming on right now. I'll just blow our own horn. If people don't know, it's actually even more significant, that people like me, Monty and Rich Lewis haven't just taken this giant Saudi bag. Like, if anything, didn't we work our whole fucking lives in esports? Like, we are the people who should cash out, if anything. Like, Richard jokes about it, but it's sort of true. He's actually smarter. If he was going to cash out, he could have cashed out for millions now. Like, not fucking 10K like dickheads did half a decade ago. Like, if anything, like, we should be the people who deserve the bag. But the problem is there are certain bags that you don't necessarily want to pick up because when you pick them up, it isn't just money and it might change who you are and who you're perceived to be in the world, which is what Riot isn't thinking about, sadly.
Yeah. Rough times.
Do you know the weirdest thing about all this as well, Monty, is this just shows you how fucked the esports industry is. Because people who've marketed that they're all about gay rights will work with people who, checks notes, hate gay people, just rather than convince a fan to give $5. Which one's the Gordian knot? That I care about gay people. Well, one thing you'd never do is work with people who hate gays. Yeah, but that's better than trying to convince a guy to pay $5 for the product. Like, how far have we gone, guys? Like, can we not just get fans to pay for this product so we don't have to have autocratic governments pay for it? Like, by the way, I would gladly pay $5 for LEC. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, sure.
I'd pay it today for a pass this week. Why wouldn't I?
Is it that crazy that you would pay for a Twitch sub just to see League of Legends esports? You could use a Prime sub. You know, fuck it, man. Like, isn't that worthy of paying? I think it's worth paying.
It's a great idea, Monty. It's not something I'd suggest, but I'm just your spitballing here. Here's an idea: have a pay-per-view crowdfund element, and some of the money goes to helping gay causes in Saudi Arabia. You could actually, by the way, not only fund the league, but you could actually do what you're claiming to do: actually affect the country. Wouldn't that be sick? Or here's one. You do something, Monty. Here's a great angle. You have a fund where what happens is if someone in Saudi Arabia, you'll love this, it's a great angle. If someone in Saudi Arabia is gay and they get persecuted, but they're famously someone who plays League of Legends and has an account, you have like a fund of like lawyers that go and help them. That's a fucking banger idea. Crowdfund that from all Western people during Pride Month. Problem solved. Problem is, guys, they're not even trying to do something like that. That's just a fantasy dream. This is just marketing. It's actually how you know, by the way, none of this ever was real. They never really cared about any of these issues. It was just something cool to say you did, so you get the clout from it, and then you go on with normal life, because let's be real, in everyday life in America, it isn't the case like in Saudi Arabia, you're constantly persecuted in your life, so they don't actually have to ever have skin in the game. But in this case, the reason it's gross is you've basically gone to the very countries where you have to have skin in the game, if you talk about this topic, and said, I'm going to actually be paid to not have skin in the game. Like, that's just sad. That's just sad for everyone involved, I'm afraid. And if you are one of those people, at least know you're deluding yourself. At least be honest with yourself. Even if you have to pull up with the bullshit that they say publicly, don't internally like this gaslight each other that this is cool. It isn't cool. I'm not even, by the way, someone who agrees with your opinions, but I just think this is fucked up because it doesn't make sense for you. This isn't even what you want the world to be, is it, guys? Come on.
Yeah. I don't fall into, I would not be persecuted as far as I know in any way in Saudi Arabia, right? I don't even fall into this. So like, apparently I care more than the people who do, which is wild to think about. Wild. All right. Shall we talk about actual LCS teams for a little bit?
Yes. I mean, the obvious one to start with is, let's just start here. If you're underwhelmed, and I was mega underwhelmed last year by Cloud9, Monty, in my opinion, they should have walked both LCS titles and actually, for real, should actually have had a chance at MSI and Worlds to do something. But you saw people like M&S blew up internationally, the team turned to shit, and obviously they just blew summer completely. I'll tell you what, I wasn't the biggest fan of keeping Fudge, but mate, this rebuild, it looked like at the offseason, that's almost the best sign you could have made, is just put George OP on middle. And when you've done it, mate, this looks fucking good now. Like, this team should be the best again. Why shouldn't they be? They look fucking mega.
Yeah, I think part of it is that, so first off, they're playing in NA. And, you know, the teams that we've seen them play against, yes, they set up the kind of rematch of the finals with NRG. However, in that particular game, I have no idea what NRG was doing in terms of trying to like draft, because basically what we saw Cloud9 do was draft basically like a siege composition with Varus and Azir. They have really strong split push with the Udyr top. They looked much more prepared than a lot of teams in the West for that pick that we've seen kind of come up in Korea in particular over the last couple of weeks. And then they get the Viego, which allows them to get resets off of some of the engage and single target damage that they have. They get pressure in top and mid almost instantly, get the 6 Void Grubs, and then devastate NRG, right? It felt like NRG really didn't have any kind of agency in this game because they were losing and getting the push in mid and top against them so hard that this is the problem with best of ones, is that it just felt kind of doomed, and there wasn't any follow-up games to dissuade us that was going to be the case. And then 100 Thieves, you're dealing with some rookies on this roster, and also 100 Thieves sees Varus Karma and thinks to themselves, yes, into Senna Nautilus and thinks, yes, now is the time to play Nocturne while bot lane is going to get shoved down our throat the entire game. And so they can invade us at will, and then Nocturne River never, ever, ever, ever gets to do anything, right? So
love Nocturnes that never get to ult. It's my favorite shit of all time, mate.
Yeah, I mean,
like some fucking fucked up BDSM shit. What are you doing that for?
And Cloud9 fans would be like, oh, Monty, you're not giving them credit for what they did do. No, they snowballed both of these games really well. Like, I want to give Cloud9 credit here. You can only play against what's given to you. But the problem is that they had such pressure and agency from the start of both of these games that it was, I mean, their opponents just kind of fell over and died, right? So I don't know what we can learn really about Cloud9, at least at international level, because we expect them to be dominant domestically with this roster. Jojo Pyun is a massive upgrade off of M&S last year. We talked about this when it was before it happened. Jojo Pyun, as EG is exploding, he definitely should go to Cloud9. He's going to be the hottest free agent, obviously, because he's the best mid laner and he's a native mid laner, which is very important for roster construction. Vulcan going back makes sense, returning to the team. Remember, Vulcan left in the first place because he didn't have good synergy with Sven and he didn't want to play with Sven anymore. Yes. And so it wasn't that Vulcan was bad. It was that they had to pick between the two of them. They picked Sven. Now we're here. Berserker and Vulcan are the new bot lane instead of Berserker and Sven after Sven role swapped. So do you keep Fudge? Apparently the answer is yes. Fudge has been playing fine, but it was never the domestic performances of Fudge that we had concern about. It was what happens internationally. This roster, we don't know, obviously, 2 games in how they're going to compete internationally. But they have, my point is that they have encountered such a small amount of resistance to this point in time that it's hard for me to get a read on exactly how good they are.
Bro, I'll tell you something really disturbing. If you go onto Reddit, there's barely any threads about LCS games. The fuck? Dude, there's none. Like, it's all just LEC and LPL and LCK. What the fuck?
Oh, they delete them after like 24 hours of them being up. They don't delete them.
Enough, okay.
They hide them so they don't take over the front page. Okay, so I think they because we're a little far out from the LCS game, they try and declutter, which is fine. You can access all the threads from like
you can just search
Leaguepedia. Right? Like Leaguepedia has links to the threads, or esports. The LOL esports VODs Reddit has them. Sorry. My bad.
Okay.
If you go to LOL event VODs on Reddit, they will have the Reddit threads links next to the VODs.
All right, cool.
If you are curious. But yeah, Cloud9 looks great is the answer. We expected them to look great. The only real question was, who's going to follow whom? Is Blabber going to be the one calling the shots and like being the focal point that the team plays behind, or is it going to be Jojo Pyun? And so far it's kind of been Blabber, but we'll see how that synergy develops. It hasn't looked like there are a lot of big issues.
No, I mean, like I say, I'm not the biggest Fudge fan. It's not even going to matter on this team. This team looks fucking dynamite. And top lane's not even that strong a fucking role in anyway. So I actually think this team just looks like that. They look like the obvious favourites to just run the league. Like, there's no reason this team. And by the way, the cool thing is, because of some of the players they have, this team actually maybe could do something internationally. Like, they have the pieces for it at least. Like, you look at the difference is you've solved nearly all your problems from last year. Meanwhile, I'll give you an example, Monty. Even though, yes, remember, technically NRG did obviously change. Ignar used to play for them, who now obviously is over in Europe, and they obviously now have Huhi from Golden Guardians, but not like an enormous change. It's a fundamental support change, but even so, you could even argue that maybe brings shot calling elements. NRG, in my opinion, winning was a symptom of how bad LCS was. So my problem is, it's obvious this team shouldn't be the best LCS team. There's no hate on them. It's still a good squad. But the difference is, Monty, I think in a healthy LCS, this is like your 3rd or 4th best team. Yes. It's like in that sort of range. Like, agreed. You want it to be Cloud9's on top, hopefully FlyQuest's really good, maybe Team Liquid's legit. Like, then you can, if you have an NRG, then now you got a healthy league. Like, because if you look at the players, it's no hate. Just look, people like Dorkler shouldn't be the best team. Fair play. He's actually turned his career around. He's become a viable player. He can be above average sometimes. These aren't the best players, though. You look at the quality in, like, the Cloud9 team especially. They're not only a good team, they have the fucking players, mate. Like, they have exactly, like, that is almost like an NA super team of LCS players. Like, that's mega. That's actually a mega team.
We talked about this coming in. Like, obviously, they did, as far as I know, Cloud9 did try to get Wunder, and Wunder said no.
I would have been too, yeah.
But I think Wunder Wonder would have been the upgrade to this team that really makes it like very good, because he can weak side so effectively and he's such a great veteran presence. And you had the ability to bring another import into this roster because you have 3 North American players there. But Fudge, you know, if he can play more, if they don't need him as much, then perhaps he can do something. If we get into a competition where top lane is very, you know, an international competition where top lane is very crucial, and top lane is very crucial in the meta right now, guys, it is very, very crucial, much more impactful than AD carry as things stand. I think Cloud9 will have trouble, because there's no way that, given Fudge's previous international performances and the way this team is going to play, that they are going to, you know, be able to hang with like the best Chinese and Korean top players.
I mean, you can argue fucking top lane ran this last Worlds, like Zeus, Bane, the Shy. Like, these were the guys smurfing all the games and fucking carrying the matches for the teams, yeah.
Yeah, and it's top lane's very impactful right now. We see a lot of like massive top lane games at the moment. It's much harder to affect top lane, which means that individual skill in top lane, as a jungler, because of the changes to the map, which means that individual skill in top lane actually snowballs harder now than it used to, because it's more difficult to like, you know, stop somebody from winning in top, or to really like change the balance of power up there. So it's, you know, it's tough. And it's fun if you like top lane players, which I definitely do. Like, I think these are really good changes to League of Legends, the professional scene, particularly because it empowers like carry top laners and like amazing top lane players in a way that the game hasn't in a while.
That Rich's Wrath made. It was a joke, but it was also actually a funny piece of analysis. He actually said that it is ridiculous that Alfari doesn't play anymore, because essentially they've made top lane his dream. Like, he'd never be able to gank the fucker. He'd just be permanent outlaning you, wouldn't he? Like, on an island. That's actually would be his dream fucking game, wouldn't it? It really would be.
Maybe he'll make a glorious return.
Because actually, here's a question I have for you, Monty. The obvious team you'll notice out of those big names I mentioned there that already is fucking slipped up on the banana peel day one is Team Liquid. Fucking hell. This one of the Thieves team should never be beating you. And also, you're just losing to that Seraphine Karma. Like, is LCS just a little noob region? I had to watch this when Danny was playing and people were picking Seraphine back when, like, I'd watch like LCK. It's like, you never even get to the game. Like, what is going on? How are they losing? Team Liquid's... Look, I'm not a massive fan of the lineup, but they should be better than this, mate. Like, this should be a really good team. What the fuck?
Well, no, I don't know how good we can say they're going to be. Like, Yun...
Look at the strength of the league, though. They should be like 3rd or 4th themselves, Monty. Look at the players they have. It's a pretty weak league, mate.
I mean, Yun and APA are pretty suspect in like key carry roles. Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Look at the team that just beat them. Look at the fucking line of 100 Thieves, mate.
Well, hey, River was probably the best jungler in LCS last summer.
But fucking Quid was fucking ridiculous last year. He was a fucking lunatic, mate.
And they have Sniper, you know, and they have
Ayla may as well be Ella. Fucking carrying an L. He's fucking ridiculous, isn't he? I'll give them each guy some time, obviously. Give them some time.
Part of it was like the CEO of LCS is back, which is Seraphine, and because teams don't punish Seraphine, if you just let Seraphine get through to 3 items, then the game is over, basically.
Why is Seraphine in LCS like a fucking Caitlyn mid in like gold or something? It's like, oh God, it's going to run the whole game. Like, believe it or not, guys, this isn't like an auto win in other regions. You have to actually do stuff with it. I know it's mental in it. It's so mental.
Because other regions will dive her and constantly fight in bot side and destroy her. Whereas, you know, LCS players don't know how to or don't like to do that, so she just gets free scaling basically. So I do think that was part of the issue. Again, it's best of ones too are going to create a lot of kind of wacky ass results. Like, I think that Team Liquid probably
like this though. Why is the LCS like fucking the Harlem Globetrotters is Cloud9 every year, and then they're like doo 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 doo, spinning the ball, and then meanwhile the Washington Generals is like 8 of the other teams all watching like, fuck, don't attack them or in any way do anything early game. Shit, they're scaling and out of control. Like, and they never do anything. Because I'll never understand that part. You would think NA would be like LPL and just fight all the time and just make that your identity. Like this thing where you like do a shit version of Koreans where you try to play correctly but just play incorrectly consistently while doing nothing is the worst possible League of Legends. It's the worst of all worlds, guys. It sucks. It actually sucks.
Yeah. And it's depressing for me because I really like as a player. And
you see, people don't know he was a cool player in Korea. Yeah, he was like creative. Yeah.
No, he was creative. He was really underrated because he was on bad rosters. I said this last year, but his English skill is very good. So him coming to an NA team makes a lot of sense. Yeah. He was already being wasted in Korea. He should have been on better rosters in Korea, in my opinion. Yes. Like he didn't deserve to be on Brion. Like that wasn't fair to He was a better jungler than the rest of his teammates were players in their respective roles. And so I was happy. Like, this is a guy where I don't feel bad losing him from Korea because he was being used improperly in Korea and he wasn't like on some sort of decline. He's also like known as, you can see what Brion looks like without him. They have no shot calling in the early game anymore. And was very good at that. His early pathing was very good. He gets a lot of early advantages. You got to see some of the good stuff from versus Shopify Rebellion. But this, I get concerned because the chemistry of this roster is how much can he actually carry out of the jungle? Weak side King Impact, and then fucking APA and Yun. Who the fuck is going to carry this team?
Bro.
Like, they're basically committed to winning off of and Core's shot calling. Maybe that's good
the
enough.
Other thing the other thing that's scary is this, Monty. This team absolutely will be in with a shout to potentially get like a world spot. You better hope they don't get it. Because like you're saying there, I'm already thinking, holy fuck, like how would you win a game ever against the LPL and LCK with that lineup? You wouldn't. Why would you?
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
It's just very hard for me to get excited about Team Liquid because it feels like unless APA or Yun take big steps forward, and there's no reason at this point in time to believe that Yun is going to do that, guys. Because
am I missing something? Look, I already hated on Harry as well. But I was never a Yun fan from the beginning either, mate. Like, am I the only one who doesn't get it? Like, why have they stuck with this guy so long? Like, are they just in a bad contract or something? Like, the joke is, if you took the nameplate off, I wouldn't know this was a Korean player. Just a whatever player in LCS. Like, and he makes lots of mistakes as well. Like, it's actually quite sad. I don't get why they've built around this player, mate. I don't get it at all. Maybe it's Gorgia J-Pick. I don't know, but I don't get it myself. I mean, there's so many players you could have replaced him with.
The theory of having a Korean-speaking roster last year worked until they had to pull, Harry to put APA in. And at that point in time, it's like, why bother sticking with Yun at that, either, right?
By the way, here's my joke as well. I didn't do it at the time, but I wish I had. The reason why it never made sense to do an all Korean-speaking roster is because then it's for people who know that Summit doesn't give a fuck about grouping and will never help them. That's too good. That's pretty good, actually. It's pretty good. Not bad. Hey, keep going.
Yeah. So I'm not too excited about. I'm too excited about Team Liquid.
What a world.
I think FlyQuest is potentially the other interesting
FlyQuest
team.
Is the hope. It's the secret. It's the sleeper hope for the league, isn't it? Come on, because the joke is, Monty, this is just LCS Team Heretics. It's like, if you like the top side, you're all in. And I'm all in. Just like with Heretics in LEC, Monty, I'm all in. Inspired, Jensen, love them all. Don't give a fuck if they have problems. Whippo, love him too. Let's just get fucking rolling and see that top side of the map win some games. Azir, yes, sir. Just what the doctor orders, Mr. Jensen. Azir coming up. Brilliant. Love it. Yeah, I mean, look, they didn't have the hardest opposition. They obviously had like a weaker strength of schedule, but they looked good in the first two games.
Yeah, especially I would say the first game, their early game, where Inspired just really wrecked them. I mean, you could see like the difference in terms of jungler quality within that match. Now, did they kind of throw it later on? Yes. Like, there were points in there where they weren't peeling properly for the back line that were a little bit questionable. They were taking fights that they definitely shouldn't have taken. I think they were cocky and they were ahead, so they weren't really worried about it. And ultimately, they had a pretty big scaling advantage, but it became kind of close at times versus... I think Shopify Rebellion also played pretty well from behind, all things considered. And I think Wild Turtle did a great job of subbing in for this roster when he wasn't even supposed to be playing as he's like a streamer for them now. He wasn't even supposed to be playing professional matches, and he still looked good. Like, he's probably better than a lot of the 80 carries that are actually actively playing in this league from what we saw.
I mean, the joke is a bit like one of those Uber Eats drivers where I live, Monty. Wild Turtle should just steal Yorn's ID and just play as him. He's actually good. So just pretend you are Yorn. Obviously, you're not allowed to just be normal play. You have to be fake Korean. So just be fake Korean and then just play with it instead of him. Problem solved. A bit like, as I say, when I see my Uber Eats coming and I'm like, oh, right, Tim's coming. And then all I'm going to say is I don't think that he was Tim when he arrived. It seemed like he was from a different part of the world. Maybe a part of the world that just got added to Europe in League of Legends, if that's enough of a clue for you.
Well, in any case, like I'm not. I think Shopify Rebellion might be able to come back a little bit. Like I think we saw some good things there. They're a fun team to watch, at least because of Insanity's like champion pool.
They have some solid players. Like they've got some decent players to gamble on in this squad.
Yeah, I think based on especially the game that they played against FlyQuest, they showed quite a lot of resilience. And if this is another example of, I wish this league wasn't best of ones, because it was such a dumpster fire for Shopify Rebellion at level 1 that it was an uphill battle the entire game, and Inspired was able basically to take level 1 advantages and then just press the advantage hugely, right? And if this was a best of 3, well, you're like, okay, well, the next game, like, hopefully we don't have a very weird game state from the very start of the game, because Shopify might be able to actually win a best of 3, but we never got that opportunity. I think they played well from behind, but yeah. Hopefully
also,
we'll see some
coaches
wins.
them is that guy who's like Ellis's mate, like that Revan guy. So
does he?
Maybe I think he's one of the ones that I've seen on Ellis's stream before. If it's the same guy, so
yeah, Revan. Yes.
Maybe he's going to bring in. Maybe he'll even bring in some interesting picks. Who knows? Will be interesting.
Yeah, especially Insanity would be the one to play them, right?
Yeah. I mean, Sony's been willing to play some crazy shit. If people don't know, by the way, this is how I know none of you actually do care about domestic talent. The players you should be fucking loving now is like Insanity. Why aren't you all over that player? What he showed last year, that's by the way, you're very rarely going to get a Jojo Pion. That's like a once in a fucking generation player, mate. Like, he obviously is just some prodigy. This guy is just like about the best you can hope for of like the emerging NA talent. Like, he had some great games last year, mate. Like, if you're an NA fan, that's the player to watch.
Yeah, I think Insanity is an incredibly fun player to watch. I've really enjoyed seeing him and his versatility, and he's fearless in terms of his picks. Like, he's another player where it's like, why doesn't Team Liquid have this guy, right? Like this guy would be such an upgrade for Team Liquid. Imagine if Insanity and Wild Turtle were on Team Liquid. They're both North American players. They could both be on this roster. All of a sudden, Team Liquid looks like potentially a real fucking contender. Instead, we have two rather, mediocre rosters as a result. Although we'll see what happens when B-Voy gets, I guess he had some visa issues or something like that, was delayed, which is why Wild Turtle was playing. So we'll see how he does when he gets here.
It also kills me as well, Monty, because here's the problem. In isolation, I love that you signed Impact. In reality, you don't have the mid and ADC, you idiot. The whole point of signing him is to make it so mid and ADC carry the game. That's why, by the way, the other angle was Cloud9 also could have signed Impact again, right? That would also have been a banger. They have the mid and ADC to fucking run the table. That's the stupidest part of this, is that's just not his game to be the perma carry anyway. So you have just limited your weapons stupidly, even though in isolation it is a good signing.
Yeah. And then, the rest of the league is kind of whatever right now. I mean, I don't even bother watching the shit games in LCS. I'm not going to waste my time watching Immortals versus Dignitas, guys. I'm not going to do that. I have better things to do this year, and I would much rather spend my time streaming the actual good matches that happen from around the world, especially now that LPL is starting off. And we can switch over there because we actually did have a fucking banger first match, which is BLG versus Top Esports, which is 1 billion times better, even though it was kind of a fiesta by the end. It 1 billion times better than what we're seeing, in LCS or really even LEC right now.
Here's the good news if you like watching top-level LPL, right? You might know one of the problems JDG had is they were obviously winning almost every match and everyone was looking sick. And so actually, the joke is, even though in the end Scout got to win MVP because he played on a team with less help, they also in JDG, essentially, no matter how well they played, you might not even be able to win MVP because there's too many good people on your team. I'll tell you what I've seen from this BLG team. Bro, there's a chance Knight is going to be the MVP of the league this year because this team is they're not even attempting to use him the way Yagao played in that team. This is going to be fucking hard round Knight, and he will have a chance to carry a lot of games. Like, he already looked fucking good in this series, mate. You saw some of those fucking killer positions. Yeah, I thought it was really great. Yeah, like, I'm hyped for this BLG team. It's exciting.
This is one of those teams that you like put up there with Gen G as a possible new super team roster because, you know, the roster is Bin, Jun, Knight, Elk, and On. And if you guys remember, Jun is also like a carry jungler, and he got to show his chops right away. First game versus top esport. Yeah, like, so right away we get to see him versus top esports versus Tien in this matchup. He plays Brand. This is another one of those games where thank God we do have best of threes in the LPL because this was BLG just stomping the ever-loving shit out of top esports. The rest of the series is kind of a clown fiesta, and it's a lot sloppier. But if you want to see some really precise snowballing and taking advantages, Billy snowballs like an early advantage, like a level 3 advantage with Brand into just winning the game. And Jun is he just fucking dominates them on the Brand jungle. And you guys are going to see more of this. Right now, Brand is the highest win rate jungler in Diamond Plus Korean solo queue. It's incredibly powerful at taking objectives. It's very good in team fights. It farms extremely quickly. The itemization is really good on it right now with like Leandries into Rylai's, so you can just get a bunch of CC. It is extremely obnoxious. And if you can like invade early, and they get Varus Ashe in the bot lane, so they're just pushing so that Jun can just walk in and fuck up Tien. Knight gets first blood after, you know, helping with an invade, and then Knight is playing. And by the way, they were playing on the hot fixed 14.1, so it was with the nerfed 80 LeBlanc, the nerfed one. And Knight plays 2 games of 80 LeBlanc and completely dominates them. Yep. So really, really fun series. Like I said, it gets a little silly later on. Like Game 3 is a shit show, but Game 1 is very good.
I actually do think that the angle, here's the problem. Basically, people just never paid attention to Jun of the players on this team. Like, they were always looking at Elk in the team fight or some move Yagao made, or obviously like fucking Bin is a monster. These are the players that draw the eye. But if you didn't know, guys, that season last year in the summer where this team were fucking monsters and they were like actually the ones winning more games even than JDG at one point in time. Like, this guy was one of the main reasons. He is like a fucking stud jungler. This isn't some like, just like taste for the team. This guy carries the fucking game, boys. Like, he gets on the champions and he just makes all the fucking plays.
He gets on Kindred, I think he's a really sick player. On Nidalee. Yeah,
this guy's a beast. Yeah, this guy's a beast.
So yes, he's good. It gives them a lot of versatility. Now we all know how good Bin is at international events as well. It's a very exciting roster. Yeah. They play a close match versus Top Esports. Top Esports, also a team that we kind of expect to be good. Right? They got 369 from JDG. Yep. They have Cream from OMG coming back this year. He's a player that has certainly like his own style of playing the game.
For sure.
And has a lot of kind of unique champions, particularly on like melee carries that are very interesting. Now whether like Tien will like troll this team into oblivion remains to be seen. You know, Tien really did a lot to carry Game 2, which Top Esports won in this series. So you can see kind of the upside there. And this guy has been, I mean, he was probably the best player on FPX when they won the World Championship. So we know what his ceiling can be. And they've got Jackie Love, you know, they've got 2 world champions on this roster. 3, Bako.
I mean, even just that pairing's so tantalizing. Jackie Love with Mako. People don't know Jackie Love always had weird ass supports. Now he's just got one of the all-time greats who's like a fucking brain support. Like, this is actually good, super sexy. I think it's gonna be really good. Yeah,
it didn't translate maybe in the 3rd game. Like the macro was just a kill fest basically in game number 3. But whatever. I mean, the sad thing about LPL format, by the way, is that because they only play a single round robin, like we get this matchup in week 1, and now we have to just go the rest of the split and just maybe never see it again, depending on how playoffs work out, right? We just may never see this again, which kind of blows because it's fun to have the big matches right at the start. It's fun to have T1 versus Gen G right at the start, but in a way, it's terrible because you want
you
these
actually
teams to
like 2 weeks before playoffs is what you want. You want to know where they're at and who's going to win. Yeah, of course.
I at least wanted a few weeks into the regular season so that I can get edged a little bit, Thorin. You know, I want a little bit of edging so that when I actually come, you know, it's more satisfying in the end. But also just because I want the teams themselves to have adapted to the patch, to have adapted to the new season, to like have figured out, like once the meta has settled, how they're going to play the game. Because all these new rosters coming together means that even if we didn't have these massive changes coming in from all of the changes to the Rift and to the itemization, even if we like didn't have that, they're new rosters that are still working out the kinks in their synergy. And so I would rather just have all the dust settled before I see the Rumble. And now I don't get to see this Rumble for like 3 months now. And that sucks. Like, I don't want to wait until April or late March or whenever to wait to see BLG versus Top again. That just feels bad.
Especially because this obviously top lane was actually the premier matchup. It's 369 against Bin. That's supposed to be the banger right there. But as you say, it's the wrong time, the wrong meta. I will say, though, shout out to the LPL in general, though, for showing that, like, the rework of the map is busted, but you have to actually make it busted. Like, guess what? Spoiler, if you like perma-gank the fucking bot lane 24/7, you will see which side of the map is harder to play on now than the other side. Like, they actually fucking exposed that, mate. Like, I thought they would like, the problem with the other regions is they didn't play around with, like, the changes. They fucking perma-ganked the bot lane in this division. It's fucking sick.
Yeah, in LCK too. I mean, one of the things that I think is going to become very troubling for Riot is that now there's like blue side level 1 shenanigans in bot lane where
we've happened all the time with the elite teams. Yeah.
I mean, we see this in Korea where like the blue side bot lane will go in the red side tri-brush and just like try to all in them at level 1. And because of the architecture of the map, it makes it very easy to do that on blue side. So something's going to have to be changed. Yes, I'm pretty sure like agreed. This can't be allowed to continue because it gives such tremendous advantages. And that's on top of the fact that it's easier to gank as the blue side jungler and it's easier to dive as the blue side. And, it feels really bad right now. And the teams have just started to abuse this. Like it started, but the abuse is spreading quickly. Like the idea is spreading very quickly because like by the end of the first week at LCK, Korean teams were doing it more. And then like the first game of the LPL, oh shit, they're doing it. Like they know the dark tech, right? Sure. And everybody's going to be doing it soon. Everybody.
The only thing is, though, there's 2 things I have to say, though. One is I'm also sad because this is like the fucking purgatory I've lived in for years now, Monty. It's like, right, we're back in the LPL. Oh, shit. The Western fans aren't watching anymore, Night. It's okay. Oh, shit, I'm like God, unbeatable, greatest player to ever play League of Legends. No one can fuck with me. I am fake at season 3 times 1 million. Like, but no one's watching. It's like, essentially, Knight's carry games must have some sort of like a mixture of some sort of racial component mixed with philosophy. Like, if nobody non-Chinese watches you succeed, did you succeed or not? That's what Reddit's trying to figure out there, you know, because like the Chinese have seen it, but they never are. And then the other aspect I'll say is why in the region that is so good at memes do players insist on picking the most memeable names? Like if your name is On and you are a support who does mad coin flip plays, they are going to call you off, my brother. That one is obvious. I mean, this shows you how fucking good Missing is. He even called himself fucking Missing. Like, you're begging to get wrecked. This is some nuclear int level shit now, boys. Like, it's the most memeable region because I do love that one. I can't lie, Monty. Whenever Off has the dog shit game, it's like On has that bad game and they just call him Off. It's just right there, isn't it? It's perfect. That is such good memeing. A shout out again for the 10th straight year to the Chinese region for coming up with the best memes and fucking names and nicknames and fucking stories. It's just the best. They're the best at it for some reason. They're so good. They're so good.
They have way more viewers, so it helps when you have just more people, you know, memeing. True. The good memes eventually stick.
The problem is we're crowdsourcing all of our fan brain power into figuring out why, like, for example, it's okay for Riot to work with Saudi Arabia. Like, they're just doing the game in LPL. You know, they're putting their mind to better things, not just fucking copium and why Travis is like the best journalist or whatever. I'll never get over that one. I can't lie. That take almost has me shook, Monty, because it's so wild how far far from reality is. You know, the take that the reason other journalists don't like Travis is because we're all jealous that he has access to Riot Games. That is a real take. I won't say who, but someone quite famous in esports said that take out loud, press send tweet, and then sat back thinking, oh, I'll be respected for this. Like, that is one of the worst clown takes I've seen in 4K years. It's so bad.
Yeah, I'm sure you're just desperate to sit down in a PR environment with Mr. John Needham and do an interview, aren't you, Thorin?
I know.
And because there's some like PR goblin in the corner, like waving their hands. Don't say that. Don't say that, John. Don't say that. Nope. Yep. And we practice this, John Needham. We practice this. You do it this way. Yeah, come on, get me out.
By the way, that's why, as we've talked about with every LCS commissioner discussion in the past, that's another thing I look down on Riot for. Mate, the guy doesn't have to answer the question. He's not in fucking a CIA black site. He can just say no comment, or even better, why not just waffle around it like Mark Z did? All you do is you just say things like, well, you know, Travis, of course, the expansion of the league will mean we'll have to consider many factors. And at the end, you go, wait a minute, he didn't say anything there. Yeah, that's the whole secret. So I've always thought the worst part is the fact that in the past, Riot didn't even give you the person to give you no comment. It's how you knew they thought they were like a dictatorship. Like, they didn't feel even obliged to give you a fake reach around as they fuck you deeply in the ass for the 10th year. Which, ironically, I wouldn't be able to say if I was in Saudi Arabia, would I? So, fall back. There you go. That's whatever. You get it. It's all good. Rainbow Road is what he called. I don't fucking know. What a world.
So yeah, LPL has just started, guys. Should be fun to continue to check out those games, yes. But obviously too early after week number 1. And it is,
I'll just tell everyone, the secret for the LPL is easy. Just watch the marquee matchups. Look at the top 5 teams, basically. Look on the calendar when they play. Just watch those. You don't need to watch the other ones. Just watch those ones and prep yourself for the playoffs, basically. And you'll actually have a sense of what you're talking about. You'll actually know who the good players are for real.
Yeah, and also it's not even that hard to identify many of the good teams. Like, here, I'll just tell you who you want to watch. So here, I'll tell you. Rookies on NIP now, with Aki and Shanji from OMG and Fodak and Zhuo. So, like, this roster might be very good. So I would check out NIP. I would continue to check out LNG, because they're basically running it back, except they have Mark now, and they also have Weiwei now, which is super exciting. So, I mean, Tarzan was really good domestically, but Weiwei, I think, he's more creative. Like, he's very good too. Yes. So, it's not really like a distinct downgrade. And their support was probably their worst player, and so now they have Mark in order to bolster that. So LNG is very excited. BLG, obviously, Top Esports, obviously, and then you might want to look at some of these other rosters, like RNG might end up being okay. Like Weibo.
Obviously JDG will be good still.
Yeah, JDG. The hype about JDG is their new like rookie top laner Sheer. And they've kind of like Flandre's kind of washed at this point, but at least they have him as a kind of reasonable
He's the insurance
backup.
Policy, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And they still have Kanavi, they have Yagao now, and they still have Ruler and Missing. But they should still be good. Who else?
You could argue maybe RNG will be decent.
Yeah, RNG might be decent. EDG might be decent.
Not plausible, yeah. If people don't know that Ala guy's a monster top laner too. He's mega. JJ was obviously the MVP back in the day. It's a pretty good league this year, mate. There's some pretty good teams.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are enough good teams, and we're going to see them interacting enough, even in the single round robin, that should be worth it. Also, guys, worth noting that the LPL English broadcast is only going, so LPL runs 7 days a week, but the LPL English broadcast is only going Thursday through Sunday, but they allow the co-streamers to co-stream every day.
If you see people like Nymira were working it, right?
Yeah, so they did the opening last night, which was a Monday. Well, it was Monday in China, Monday in Asia, where I am, right? But basically right now, because of the shenanigans with dropping the LPL broadcast, they're only able to do it 4 days a week at the moment, which sucks, but you can still go to co-streamers to get full coverage.
And by the way, interesting detail, because it ties in, it's not going to be streamed live. It'll come out as a VOD, but on the next episode of Best Damn League Show, Nymira will be my co-host on that episode.
Very good. Excellent. So yeah, Lots of League of Legends. Feels much better than it did last week, where we can actually kind of pick and choose our good games. We haven't even talked about Korea yet. We did have the first entire full week of Korea. I forget because I already like talked about this on the Monty and Wolf show with Wolf. But what were your thoughts on like T1 versus Gen G?
I mean, that was one where I actually did get ye old Gen G underdog odds, because if you don't know, like, obviously people bet the fuck out of T1, so I think Gen G was like 2.6 or something ridiculous. So on that one, I thought, fuck it. You look at the roster, you take a flyer, maybe they can just get it together. The problem with that series for me was T1 definitely didn't look at like peak level. They looked a little bit off in some of the games to me. And Gen G was good, but it clearly is still a bit messy. Like I can't yet know how that roster will come together. The pieces are incredibly enticing. Like there really is a world where it's a super team and it just runs the game. And it's like the Korean version of what JDG was going to be for China. But I have to say still, the problem at the moment is you can imagine the knockout power from some of the players is really big, but are they going to be super coherent? What did you think? Like, because I didn't have super. Here's the thing. I haven't put the expectations too crazy for Gen G initially. Like, it's kind of a brand new team to me. So I'm waiting to see it like get together. But I thought it looked good in this first outing, mate.
Yeah, it did look good. The last two games would have been pretty one-sided for Gen G if T1 hadn't like stolen the Baron in the third game, which was a ridiculous mistake by Gen G. So, it was kind of silly. Or if like T1 hadn't gotten the hero flank on the Drake fight in game number 2, which kind of prolonged things. But Gen G's early game in the third game was really good. And I think we're seeing a lot of the potential of what Canyon can bring to this roster. The shot calling, I talked to Arnold from Gen G about this, and he told me that the shot calling right now is kind of being shared between Lehens and Chovy, which is obviously a huge change from Peanut being the main voice in the team. Like, he was really like the one deciding things within the former iteration of the roster. But Chovy and Lehens have played together before, so I'm sure that helps. And, I was impressed with how crisp their early game looked in some of these, and also impressed that they don't seem to be making the mistake that, for example, other like Dom 1 and D+ rosters have made kind of once they had passed their peak, which is that they have these players with incredibly deep champion pools, and so they don't really know how they're going to play the game. Like, if we would have expected Canyon to be like, I'm going to play the brand jungle and carry this game. He's on tank duty, guys. And I think that's just a smart way to deal with this roster, which is like, let's figure out how we're going to communicate in game. Let's kind of like fill roles first before we start doing some more wacky shit and playing, trying to deepen our playbook. And so it wasn't particularly like innovative or crazy, but it was like very solid fundamental League of Legends, and Canyon looked very good. He looked very good. Keen looked really good. I mean, the funny thing is like, I do encourage you guys, if you haven't seen this match, which is the match that Gen G played later that week against Nongshim, because Keen plays Darius into Udyr, and he fucking becomes a raid boss in this game. And it is very, very funny if you like top lane carries to just watch Keen chasing Nongshim around the map and like all 5 of them just sprinting as fast as they can away from this super fed Darius. It is a great, great entertaining game. It is so funny. Also T1. I don't really think this is indicative of T1's form.
No, it's the first game. Come on.
It's the first game. They took a long break after winning Worlds. They were like traveling to Europe for that show match for Red Bull.
Well, they had lots of off-season shit. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so like this is why I didn't want to see this matchup in week 1. It's just going to take a really long time for us to be able to see this again in the second round robin. Like the next time this match happens is in March, I believe. Yeah, it's March 9th. Because, LPL and LCK are going to take a week off in early February for Lunar New Year. So there's a break there. And then we have to wait for the second round robin to start. So it feels like a bit of a bummer because I don't think T1 really was super prepared going this. How could they be prepared? It's an entirely new Gen G roster, right? Yes. And we'll get more information as this goes on. But I don't read too much into it for both teams. It was a very fun match to watch, though. I will say that.
Yes. It got me hyped. But as you say, the real problem here is we're all, if Gen G and T1 end up being the two best teams, we're all going to argue about them and debate back and forwards the whole time. Swally, we did this last summer. And if you remember, the Gen G played KT in the opening fucking series, and then it was that weird one with the misbuy on the third game. So it's like, essentially, all like comparisons didn't make sense till the playoffs, did they? So we're like, the whole time we're like, but are they that good? Would they have won that game? Like, you want to see this in like 5 weeks when both teams have gotten going, they've gotten games under their belt, and then essentially see who is the best team in the LCK. So whatever. In some ways, it just delays the storylines, I guess. The other one, obviously, to me is like, I even said this to Wolf and Brendan, like, I didn't get how people missed this. Technically, absolutely, on paper, by all the definitions, Hanwha Life's a super team too. I saw you discuss this on the Monty Wolf show. Like, remember, they have people who are champions of Korea or world champions. Like, they have like a real fucking team, guys. Like, look, I know it doesn't have the same hype, but actually, if there's a world where if this team sort of can work, look, it has to be a bit more cynical with people like Dora and Peanut. But you look, if all these players can fit together, this could also be a really good team. This could be right up there and give some challenge, be a dark horse, right?
I mean, just objectively, as we're looking at this, like, technically, Hanwha Life has more of the 3 consecutive LCK champion players than Gen G does right now. Yeah. So, 2 of their players.
And obviously, Viper isn't even one of them. And by the way, Viper's a fucking bona fide stud, isn't he?
Like, so, if we're talking about this roster, like, Peanut and Doran have won the last 3 titles of this league. And Delight has won the last 2, the last 2. In the same way that Pays, has won the last 2. Who remains on Gen G. So we expect like the core of this title-winning Gen G roster to be good, and then you put in a legendary player like Viper, and then a massive downgrade at mid lane like Zeka, who, by the way, fucking won't even play Akali for me in an Akali meta, which is just so annoying.
That is so bonkers, mate. My own hope is at least the Akali met. Like his fucking champions are right there, isn't it? Like, sure, he first picks it.
He's just playing fucking Azir. Like, why? What the hell, man? It's not even banned. Like, can I please see? Please, can I see some Zeka Akali? Like, I'm not paying for this bullshit. So that's been a bit of a letdown. But also, Hanwha Life, like, they've played kind of bad teams, like DRX and Kwangdong Freaks. The games have been rather boring. They haven't been like
Monty on Sunday. They play T1.
That's I know.
The only
that's
to care about.
That's
going to be spicy. Yeah. By the way, T1 better win that. Imagine if they start out losing to 2 of the rivals. Woo! With the re-signed roster. All I'm saying is a lot of pressure on T1 in that one, mate. A lot of pressure on that one.
We have the Telecom War next week, so KT versus T1, and then HLE versus T1. KT has also, I think, been overperforming expectations.
By the way, who at LCK did T1 hurt? Why have they started the season with that? Right, you go Gen G in the KT into Hanwha Life. Enjoy, fuckface. It's like you're trying to make them go 1 and 2. What the fuck? Like, what are you doing? This is brutal. This is a nightmare.
It's just so they can sweep the rest of the first round robin as they just go decimate all of the terrible teams, right? But yeah, look, I think Hanwha, I'm holding out judgment on them. The games have been frankly quite boring, in my opinion, that Hanwha has played. Just kind of by the numbers victories, not anything particularly interesting. We don't even get to see their flashy players playing their signature picks, which feels like a big bummer. But, they've dispatched of their 2 opponents, and they have won every game they've played. So what more can you really ask of them? They are technically in first place right now because they are 4-0. And Gen G lost one of the games to T1, so they're only 4-1. And so is KT. KT, interesting. Like, Pioshik is playing shockingly well. Beryl is playing shockingly well.
I have to ask you something. Can someone explain to me, what is the deal with Fear X? Why is Fear X a brand? Why is the logo a fox, and therefore the abbreviation is Fox, not FX? Like, what is going on with you? You love branding somebody. What is going on with this team? Give me some thoughts.
I flamed them on the Monty and Wolf show, and Wolf explained it to me.
Isn't it?
Wolf explained it to me this way: that in Korea, like, when you like write something that's incorrect, you put an X next to it. Whereas if in like schoolwork in Japan as well, you put a circle next to it. So it's like fear, no fear. but then they needed to come. I know it's terrible. It's terrible.
It makes my skin crawl how bad that is.
So bad. But then they needed like a logo, and like a code, and instead of just going with like, first off, how do you represent no fear? I mean, they could have just written the word fear and put an X through it, right? But then they like decided on the Fox logo, so then they became the like Busan Fearless Foxes, and then they use foxes. The whole thing is so convoluted. It makes no sense. It's awful.
It's a nightmare.
It's a multi-linguistic nightmare is what we're dealing with right now. Only post modernity can create abominations of language this extreme. Yeah, it's bad. And also, look, I don't particularly care because I think Live Sandbox was also trash.
That was pretty shit too. That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. True.
The funniest thing that Wolf said to me was that he said that the casters have been told not to call them Fox. So they have to call them Fear X, even though it says Fox in front of their name. So it just deepens the level of confusion.
Oh, the suffering. By the way, if you don't know, guys, the idea that something could be written on a screen in front of you, but you're not allowed to see it, is actually a nightmare if you work on broadcast. That is mental. I'll also just say, if you don't know which team we're talking about, here's all you need to know. It's the team that fucking Lord Willer plays on. That's right. You know what? You know how Morgan did actually become like a competent player? Lord Willer, he's still out there in the LCK doing his shit.
Lord Willer dominated Breon, dude. He was the first player to play the brand, the jungle brand. He actually shat all over Breon. So he was good.
Everything that was good in Breon departed in the offseason, mate. Like, they're not even a good team anymore.
Breon is so sad right now. Because you know the joke about Breon last year was that they were shockingly good in the early game. And you were just waiting for Breon to throw. You're like, okay, Breon, how could you possibly lose this game? And then they would always lose.
Karmine Corp.
Yeah, no. They were much better in the early game than Karmine Corp. They'd be like, you'd be like, Breon, you have a 4K gold lead. Surely you're winning this game, right? No, lose every time. So it was really funny to watch them as a result. But now without Umti, they don't even get the lead. Like, they don't even have like the early game pathing and shot calling to get the lead. And Morgan also looks worse. So literally some of their games are like 4 bots and Morgan playing Jax and split pushing while his entire base dies. It is depressing to watch Breon, let me tell you.
Oh, by the way, you know how you guys all told me, like usual, I don't know why they do this, Monty. It's such a weird angle. You know, they all, if like, you know, when Flame back in the day, there was rumors he might go to TSM. They're like, that'll be Thorin's nightmare. It's like, why? How would that change anything? So everyone did the same thing. When Reckless signed with T1, the Challenger team, they were like, Thorin in shambles. I'll give you guys an update. In case you're wondering, Reckless has lost every single game so far. Not every single game, every single series. They've lost the first 3 series and they are bottom of the Challenger League. There you go. By the way, he actually did play quite well in some of the games, but that's irrelevant. He's lost all the games, so enjoy that, dickheads. You're in shambles. And then, by the way, are you ready, Monty? I'm just going to give you a little gift right here. I might actually do a Thorin versus Reddit and include some of these, because the Corpium from Reckless fans is mental, mate. Even in one of the threads about them losing these Challenger Series games, Monty, there was real Corpium where people suggested that there is now a greater than 0 chance that T1 takes Reckless to Worlds and then puts him in a game so that then when they win Worlds, he gets a World skin. Right? If you can't see how mental you are, that you're already projecting them to know they're going to win Worlds so they can throw early games, like, you have lost reality. Like, the idea, 1, he was ever even going to get put in the World squad is mental. 2, the idea they would insert him for a game you know nothing about Koreans. And 3, then they're going to win Worlds as well. Like, Corpium, it's you that are in shambles, Reckless fans. The Corpium is so insane on this one. That is mental, mate.
I don't think there's a 0% chance that they sub him in against like Breon and LCK, though.
And LCK,
I don't think that's crazy.
Worlds they do. No one's risking a Worlds game. I don't care what the scenario is, man. No one's doing that. Come on.
No, they wouldn't do it at Worlds. But I do.
Put it this way. Here's the scenario, Monty. If in like week 12 they're up and they've won, like, you know, they've lost 2 series total, and it's a mean that, yeah, they might give him like game 2 when they're up 1-0, right? Exactly. They might do that or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm with you on that one.
If you're asking me, like,
yes.
If they're up 1-0 against like Breon or DRX, do they consider putting in Reckless? I think they do. I would do it.
That's not impossible. I mean, it'd be worth it just for the pop at that point.
Exactly.
It, you know?
Right. Yeah. The hype.
Yes.
So I would seriously consider that.
But you don't think he's getting a world skin? Getting a world skin? Yeah, you are so shameless, Reckless. Well, you're actually reverse engineering ways that Reckless wins a world skin in 2024. You absolute rats. You are fucking disgraceful.
Right. I mean, they wouldn't even take him as a substitute player.
I know. By the way, guys, as if they're going to burn a real substitute spot that they could actually use for like a player that might need to use. Like, by the way, what happens when you take Reckless as a meme substitute, Monty, and then Faker gets a hand injury in the middle of the game?
Exactly.
Yeah, good luck. It's fucking game over there. By the way, that's what gets everyone in the company fired as well if you do that. Like, I mean, that'd be game over.
Not ironically, Thorin, this is not an ironic statement. If Faker got injured, probably the best person to replace him in mid would be Keria. And so maybe you do take Reckless.
Give me a break. You don't. You still just use whoever the fucking academy support is at that point in time. You just do, mate. You just do. Come on. Also, the idea they're going to put in a player that speaks English and no fucking Korean. Give me a break. It's not even plausible, you idiots. It'd be a meme to do it. It's not even real.
He might know enough Korean in 10 months. I don't know.
Give me a break. We'll find out soon. This motherfucker couldn't speak in English to other people from his region and be reasonable. Like, he's not speaking Korean, I'll tell you that right now, mate. There's no way.
I've had enough fun. I've had enough fun torturing you with this idea now.
Obviously, the joke is, though, in a way, he already is preparing to play in another pro team because he already practices from a different room than the being T1 players, doesn't he? So, he's already ready for it, isn't he? It's just like Fnatic back in the days. I won't tease too much more. They'll come soon. I've got to actually do that one properly, Dot the I's, cross the T's, all that.
I think also what fans are missing in that point, Thorin, is that this isn't Worlds where, you might, in the old Worlds groups, you might have like a throwaway match or two at the end of the group stage.
No,
right?
You might play like Bangkok Titans or something, and then you go, who gives a fuck? Exactly.
You're like 5-0 and you play fucking Bangkok Titans, and you've already secured first seed, so you throw them in. Like, imagine losing a game in Swiss because you put them in. It would be fucking. It could like tank your entire tournament, right? So you don't do that.
You play like fucking BLG next game, so you're out. Exactly. Like, that's how you just. What people don't realize is that, like, you're right. It's not even the right year. At least there was scenarios you could have contrived that it would happen. Now there are no games off. You have to just fucking go 100% every game as G2 discovered.
Yep.
Right, any more factors we need to discuss?
I mean, I think KT looks, like I was saying, I think KT looks surprisingly good. Perfect's debut has been good. Lucid got fucking trolled by his team in that KT match. He played amazing, and his team fucking ran it down, especially in the third game of that series. He did so well on the Sejuani. People will be like, oh, he got caught out. He got caught out at a time where they couldn't take any objective and it didn't matter. But in some of those team fights, man, he was really good.
I can see why they've promoted this guy. Looks like a stud, doesn't he?
Yeah, so I think the people should keep track of the rookies. Lucid, the jungler for D+, and then Perfect for KT. Perfect has had some extremely good games so far that have been very exciting to watch. KT, as long as Pyosik and Beryl can stay in form, could be good. But again, do we really expect that to be the consistent result? There have been 0 times in Pyosik's career where he's been consistent, so why the fuck would it start now? Like, I think KT is probably like very optimistically the third best team in this league. I think most likely, it's 4th or 5th. And there's a pretty hard line between D+, Gen G, Hanwha Life, T1, and KT, and the bottom 5. Like, there's a very clear delineation. And unfortunately, like, we hope that Kwangdong might take the next step because they have Cuz, and Dudu was really good last year, and Bulldog had some flashes, but Taeyun and Andal, their bottom lane, are just garbage. So I don't think they're going to...
guy is criminal, mate. He is fucking criminal.
I think what's interesting is actually the Dark Horse team, like the 6th playoff team, might actually be Nongshim, because Call Me has been pretty good in the matches I've watched. Call Me and Jiwoo have been pretty good, and Dundun is like a pretty solid weak side, kind of like standard top lane player, and Sylvie has actually been really good as well. So Nongshim might actually be a little bit of a sleeper. FearX, people might be hyping up after their last match, but that was versus Brion. They played so badly against KT.
By the way, I feel like there's some people still don't know this. The guy Execute is Yonghoon from Astralis, if you don't know that. He plays in LCK now,
I mean, he's funny to watch. He is, because he's very aggressive. He does run it down in LCK. He's supposed to be
on there. This wasn't a great week for him. Let's put it that way, okay? That's not his champion, Monty. It's not his champion. It's Pike Terrorist like me.
Yeah, well, when he tries to be a Renata terrorist and like flash handshakes in and dies,
It's wild.
It hasn't looked great for old Execute. Like Execute and Clear have been quite bad on VRX. DRX might be the other team that eventually could do something because they have a bunch of true rookie players in Pleta, Satab, and Sponge. So if they have any development over the course of the year to kind of match Teddy and Rascal as more veteran players, then perhaps something interesting can happen there.
What's great about that team is you've got cynical, like Mad Lions-esque promotion of like, we'll just keep our players cheap from fucking academy level. And then you've got two players, Monty, Rascal and Teddy, who are just like permanent Elo hell players their whole careers. Like Rascal's job is like, I've got a solo kill, but it's League of Legends 5v5, so I lose. And then Teddy's job is like, never get to a team fight you can carry. Doesn't matter. Like, so like, they haven't even got the right positions though. But I know what you mean. Like, if assuming they have a reason to have faith in these players beyond saving money, I mean, at least it is like a coherent team. Like they've played together before, some of them. So there's maybe a little bit of hope to hold out there.
I mean,
I'm also just a Teddy style. I don't even care, mate. I've just always loved that guy's style of play. Even though he just played the boring style, he plays it well.
Yeah, and DRX, like the three players they brought in jungle, mid, and support, have been playing on the DRX. They've been part of the DRX farm system.
I think Brendan Valdez said on like a show I did, I think he said that like Sponge was the one that people said was going to be good or something.
I don't know. I'm not an expert in the challenger scene. He was casting those games last year, so he would know much better than me.
Was going to watch.
Yeah, so Sponge has been pretty good on the Maokai, admittedly. But anyway, DRX at least, like, it doesn't feel super doomed like Breon, because we know all these fucking guys on Breon. Like, Effort is the worst player in this league. He's never going to be good, guys. Like, he's never going to be good. He sucks. And so you can hold out hopium for DRX because they have three true rookies and we haven't seen these guys before. And that feels like clearly the ceiling has to be higher.
My joke with Effort always goes like this, right? If someone's a really good player, Monty, if I ask you, who's that player? The first thing you go is, oh, he's a fucking beast. Like, engaged player, plays the Thresh and the fucking Pike and the Leona. No, what's the first thing anyone says? Let's see if you can just guess, right? Put yourself in the mind of a fan. If I said to you, who is Effort? What would be the one first thing everyone says?
Ian's.
No, the joke is they wouldn't even try. They would just go, he used to play on T1. That's it. They don't even say he's a good player. He just, to this day, lives off the fact that once upon a time, on the not as good lineups, he played for T1. That's it. He gets to die out on that forever, even though, one, he was one of the most criminal players in that fucking T1 lineup. Two, there's a reason he doesn't play for top teams. And three, I don't even know. He was never that great then. He's definitely not a good player now, mate. He's just nothing now. He's just a whatever player. And it's actually, the joke is he's actually got to be one of the worst players to play for T1. Like, it's actually kind of true.
Yeah.
It was this fucking guy, just whatever. And then, as I said, there he is, Lord Morgan. Finally ready for his own Chovy arc where he's the one trapped in Elo hell as other people in him.
I mean, he hasn't even looked good.
You like a bit of karma, do you, Morgan? Little bitch.
He has it.
I just hold it against him forever what he did to Chovy, mate. I'll never forgive him for that. That team was so brutal, that one. I couldn't handle it.
He's not even good right now. Right. So unfortunately, a lot of the power that he had last season.
In that team, mate. You just have to pray that Karras guy carries a game, basically. That's your only chance, I think. Maybe he can carry one game or two.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's pretty much it for the teams this week. Lots to discuss, obviously, with all the news coming out, especially with the craziness that happened over in the LCK. Got to some of the teams, and I think we'll take a quick break, and when we get back,
though, if you don't like the show, don't tune out. Watch it even more religiously, and in doing so, represent fans who don't like the show by watching the show and encouraging us to make more of the thing you don't like. That's League of Legends esports for you.
That's right. You're really pushing the envelope by continuing to consume our content that you actively don't like, and therefore giving us not at all good PR in terms of higher viewership. So there you go. Exactly. All right, guys, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be back.
Right, we are back for viewer questions, or viewer questions, as El Yoya calls it. Yes. Shout out to the Spanish crowd who's now joining us in esports, watch all these videos. Definitely not misusing YouTube functions to fuck with the video. Don't do that at all. Why would you? Be cool, people. Anyway, if you are indeed a viewer, or a new viewer, or an old viewer, one of the long-time viewers, a viewer that wants to ask a question of us as they view this show, then do so by submitting your viewer question in the viewer, written in English as viewer questions channel on our Discord, Last Free Nation, where if you subscribe, you too can both support us and ask viewer questions. So what have the viewers been asking? That's what I'll do.
Our viewers have been asking. We only have a short time to do this today, guys, because I am very, very, very tired from having a newborn, and I need to sleep at some point so I don't die. And it's currently 11:15 p.m. my time, and I can't live on gamer hours anymore because I have kids. So we'll do a few.
Okay.
What are the best and worst traditional foods you have ever tried from any culture? Best and worst. I mean, I know the answer to this immediately. So worst was that fucking Icelandic shark. I don't know if you know what this is, that horrible fermented shark.
Oh, so it's kind of like what they do in Sweden, the Surmastrong type thing, where you intentionally let it rot, basically. And the idea is it's like an absurd, like, I imagine that's the most specialist flavor in the world, right? I think it probably sounds horrible. I imagine it's really shit, right?
The smell of this thing alone is appalling.
They make you want to vomit.
Yes. And the Icelandic shark, horrible. On a more low-key, that was by far the worst, by the way. On a more low-key level, now that I'm in Korea, bundegi, which are silkworm pupae, are also very gross. Like, I don't necessarily have an issue eating insects. Like, I like Mexican roasted crickets in small quantities with like a glass of mezcal. I think it's fine. But like the silkworm pupae are just gross and they taste bad. So it's a delicacy in Korea. They are bad.
That's the part I can't handle. It would make sense, Monty, if it, like, you know, contained something where it tasted like the greatest Belgian chocolate, and it's like, yeah, it looks gross, but like, wow, the idea it tastes bad as well. Like, this is like caviar. Like, I'm not fucking eating it. You can keep the shit. I don't give a fuck. Have it all. There you go. It's all for you. I'm missing out. Oh, bloody hell, I'm missing out again.
I mean, best traditional foods. I eat a ton of traditional foods and cook them from many cultures. So I don't know. There's tons of good ones. I don't know what the best one is. But the worst, I can tell you the worst one. The worst one is that Icelandic shark. That is the worst one. Do you have a worst one?
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I'm assuming when they mean traditional, they mean not our own culture. Like, by the way, right. I actually do think just like a hearty Irish stew is one of my go-to foods. You can't really go wrong with that if you do it right. Yeah, it's not going to be the greatest meal of all time, but the flaw is fucking excellent on something like that. So that's but if we're going like foreign countries, it probably would be something like Korean barbecue, mate. I actually think for it's my favorite food. I think it's fucking banging. Meanwhile, if I'm going with traditional ones I don't like, I told people before, I just don't like Mexican food in general. So those are the ones that it's quite controversial, but I'm just not a fan, mate. It doesn't do it for me.
I love Mexican food so much.
Like, one of my problems with Mexican food is like this as well. I like it to be spicy, but with like a flavor. The spice they put in is just burning, mate. It's just heat. Like, I want it to be enjoyable. They just put heat in. I hate that. That's not my style.
Tastes good to me.
I like you've been in LA, so you just blasted all your taste buds out your head. So you're like, oh, this is all right. It's like, yeah, okay, put another fucking jalapeno in there.
Next. If you guys were on an episode of Would I Lie to You, what is a true story you would tell that no one would believe was true, preferably esports related?
I mean, I could actually do this. Actually, I'd actually did a tweet like this recently. I actually technically played one professional game of Counter-Strike because I played at a major, but it was a CPL where it was an open one, so anyone could register. I played at a major, one game ever, one map. In this map, I was playing against players who 2 years earlier, 2 or 3 of them had been some of the best players in North America. They were washed at this point in time. And in this one game, even though I was using someone else's keyboard and mouse, and this was in America, it was like a dream. And I actually carried and won like 3 1v1s or something against like former pro players. My team lost in overtime, and that was the only game I ever played ever of professional esports, and I was the shit. So you know what, guys? I am that motherfucker who could, you know what? You all dream, you walk in the game. I did it, motherfucker. That sounds fake, doesn't it? Sounds like a lie, but I don't lie. Even though on that show you actually have to lie. But there's a good one. There's a good one for you.
The problem is that most of the stories we would tell are not appropriate to be made public.
Sure. No, but here's the thing. For you, there must be one where like you could tell someone about your life or something. I'm sure there's some angle that people wouldn't know about you that would like surprise them.
I mean, I don't know. Actually.
There's not some secret thing you haven't revealed to people?
I'm thinking, I mean, I've been pretty open about my past is the thing. Enough. Like even like my non-esports stuff, I've discussed in like interviews with you or interviews with other people at length. And I'm trying to think of something because it says preferably esports related.
So you know when people know that famous image that people put on the internet of you where you have the leather jacket and the long hair?
Oh,
when you were in that era, I'll give you one. You tell me if how much we can say about this. I'm sure in this era, Monty wasn't this like buttoned up professional in the same way. I imagine you were a bit wilder. Maybe you had a party side to you, Monty, perhaps. I don't know. I can imagine you in some sort of a club with like fucking 9 Inch Nails playing and you're like, hey baby, what's going on? Like there wasn't any of that going on. Come on.
I mean, I told you that was the era when I was like tasing myself by making a stun gun onto a hammer with Mjolnir. You know what I mean? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I did go. I was not very good at following the rules. I'm not good at that now. Okay. I just do it differently.
Basically, that was more sort of the Sons of Anarchy, Monty, in some ways, right?
The motorcycles. I mean, the motorcycle jacket, and no, it's definitely. I was definitely like. I think people would be surprised that I did have like the motorcycle jacket, like long hair, more punk rock era looking at me now. Yeah. Like metal punk rock. I was definitely like fan of that kind of music. I was definitely pretty far out there compared to some of my peers at the schools I went to. Thorin mentioned that Keria was one of the cutest esports players. Name the top 5 cutest LoL esports players of all time.
Ooh.
Most adorable.
Here's the thing. The reason this is actually a good one is obviously there are loads of like Korean and Chinese players who did just look hella cute, who just had like Neoteny. They had like the child face, didn't they? Where they looked super adorable. Like I'm trying to think of one now. Fucking who would we go with for this?
I mean, young Loco Doco has to be in there, right? Come on.
Listen, people don't know
the 2011 emo phase.
If you go back to when he had like that proper emo hair, he actually, he had the look down. He did. He nailed the look. I'll give him that. Yeah, he's up there for sure.
Peanut on the Rocks Tigers. Peanut on the Rocks Tigers definitely qualifies.
Yes, I mean, Peanut had that thing where the joke that he's a mega veteran now. It's like he permanently looked like he was like 15 for about 5 years, didn't he? Yeah. Oh, he's hella cute. Oh, by the way, I brought that Reflections out on Christmas Eve. Watch from fucking Najin back in the day.
Yeah,
probably one of the cutest players of all time. True. By the way, it's one of the ones where if you've been to Korea, you actually know what the difference in good looking. Because you know the famous concept that people who are a bit blind to like the different types of Koreans can't quite tell. He is really good looking even for Koreans, guys. He is. I've met him in real life. He is actually really good looking. Yeah. He's legit. He is hella. Flame, obviously, my boy Flame.
Sure, yeah.
Back in the day, if we're going old school.
Those are good ones.
Not in necessarily a way that I like. I'll say Lupo was pretty cute. I mean, every time I saw him, I wanted to put my arm around him and go, it's going to be all right. Listen, don't listen to him. He'll make it. It's okay. Because he just always looked like just a sad sack, didn't he? Like, oh, buddy. Oh, sad. There you go. There's a few.
All right. Next question. Orion is a great name. Congrats, Monty. I agree. On that topic, what are your top 3 boy and girl names for both Monty and Thorin? I was actually talking about this on my stream today, so this is very easy for me to respond to, especially because I've had to name people. So now I have. So here, I'll tell you the story about why I couldn't name my kids what I wanted to name them. So, I am a big fan of the Middle High German Grail epic poem Parsifal, which is the German name of Percival, one of the Knights of the Round Table. And so I wanted to name my kid Percival, but the problem with this is that if you say Percival in Korean, you have to say it Pershipal, and Shipal means fuck. So I couldn't name my kid that. And so even though you call him Percy for short or whatever, so Percival was out. Percival was tragically out.
Oh, and you also said Perseus on the last one. That was another one.
I said Perseus, right? So I wanted Perseus because I could still call him Percy.
That was the pivot, right?
But it was also a Greek name. Like, plus, if you have a kid named Perseus, you can buy them all kinds of cool Medusa shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's fun things you can do with like buying your kid stuff, you know? So I was into that. But my wife said no, because she didn't like the short version Percy. And we were trying to find names that, you know, either sounded kind of normal on their own or could be shortened to something normal. You know, I might have named one of my kid Aurelius if I had been given my own, you know, left to my own devices and just called him Lee or something like that for short. But I wanted Percival really badly, and I liked Perseus a lot. So those are some of the boys' names. But Orion's still a Greek name from Greek mythology, and I like it a lot. And it's something that everybody knows how to pronounce because it's a very common, also star constellation. So that one was really good, I thought. We agreed on that one. As for girls' names, I think probably we would have also gone kind of, there were a couple names that my wife and I were talking about. Two of them were Greek mythology related. So one was Calliope, who's the lead muse, and then Callisto, and then from Shakespeare, Cordelia, which could be shortened to like, so the first two could be shortened to Callie, and then the third one could be shortened to Corey or Delia. So those were names that we considered, but it was like for me, it was like a lot of mythological names or classic names or Shakespeare names. We talked about Oberon for this kid as well. Those are some of them.
No, here's the thing. I would probably use a similar thing because I would try and pick the name based on like referring to some, ideally fictional one's a good one. Something that I like sort of would want them to, like, I'll give you an example. I think a cool name would be something like Valiant.
Sure.
What a cool first name that would be, right? Pretty dope. So I'd pick something like that. There you go. Not Valorant. Not Valorant. Valiant.
I think Von Miller named his kid Valor. Okay. On that line. Similar thought process. That's a good one.
I've always thought the maddest one is definitely the ones where some of those NFL players, you know, when they're like named Steve and they have like 7 kids called like Steve Senior, Steve Junior, Steve, and then like Steve Areno, and then like Steve Ella, if it's like a girl. You know, the ones that go absolutely mad like that. I love that shit. It's so crazy, isn't it? I know. I love it. All right, next one.
Yeah. Also, Val is a good short form of that too, like Val Kilmer, right? It's good. What sort of humans eats baked beans before the hour of 12 p.m. with a roof on top of their head and with no barbecue to accompany it?
I'll tell you the answer. The people that made it possible for your country to exist, they were your people, you idiots. But your people became traitors and terrorists and turned against them, and now you eat the bean at a different time of day and think you're superior. You lose. The beans win. Long may the beans prevail. The beans are not dead. Long live the beans. Okay, there you go. That's it. That's it.
The beans should only be eaten outside and not for breakfast, as God intended. You know, just because the British were using them improperly before, thank God America figured out how to free the baked beans and use them in their proper manner. Is there any food you miss from earlier in your life that is no longer accessible to you for some reason?
Oh, there's loads. Are you ready for why, Monty? This might actually be a bizarre thing. It won't take long. But basically, there's 2 things happened. One is that in the modern day, obviously, things like artificial sweeteners are very, very cheap. So they're a way to cut costs on a product. And then true. 2, in the UK specifically, they've done a law in the last few years, Monty, called a sugar levy, where if you put too much sugar into a product, you have to pay extra tax, basically. So instead, this is the nightmare fuel. They take products, Monty, that were full sugar ones, and they just put like half sugar, half artificial sweetener in the full sugar one. So now essentially, if you liked like the things I liked when I was a boy, spoiler, I was in the worst era ever for food standards. So like the things I was drinking were like blue chemical weird things that like don't have any fruit or human thing ever touched it, and it's all fucked up. But the real problem with this, Monty, is 1, they made the flavors hella delicious, probably gave you cancer as well, and 2, they put a fuck ton of sugar in that bad boy, Monty, and that's why it tasted like the shit. Well, the problem in the modern days, even the same product that looks the same tastes nothing like it did when you were a kid, because they just don't put the sugar in, and now they use even more cynical chemicals. So unfortunately, essentially a lot of the things actually that I used to be sort of my like guilty pleasures as a kid in terms of snacks and foods just either aren't sold or they're kind of ruined. So yeah, there's a little anecdote for you. Sad.
I guess I don't really miss any foods. If I think about things that were discontinued from when I was a kid, the soda surge comes to mind. which is like a very like 90s like high caffeine soda. If you know it, you know
like
it.
An energy, it's a bit like Jolt Cola.
It's more like Mountain Dew, something like that.
Right.
But I have a feeling like if I drank it, I don't even drink soda now, so I probably wouldn't even drink it now. But it did exist at the time, and I did like it. But I don't really think back and be like, oh, I really want that thing, especially because we never really had a lot of those old sugar things in America because it was always corn syrup. It was just corn syrup all the way down. So like Coke tastes way better in Korea because it uses real fucking sugar, right? It tastes like shit in America. So.
That's why the Mexican soda is the famous import in America. It is the shit. It tastes delicious.
It's much better.
Yes.
Can you guys ever recall in both the NFL and esports, or another sports league that comes to mind, where a team starts off so well, Eagles this season with a 10-1 record, and then literally just systematically falls apart and turns into a shit team? And regardless of what you both pick for these two answers, what factors do you think lead to that kind of collapse happening in sports? Is it due to coaching, players becoming lazy, unmotivated, or another reason? I think the Eagles just quit this year. That's the sense I get from them. There's no reason that they would have been as good as they were getting to the Super Bowl last year and then getting to 10-1 this year. I just have a feeling that they had locker room poison or something like that. That's what I feel like.
I mean, if he's trying to give examples, there's loads of examples. I mean, all you need to do is pick like those teams in the circuit where they start awesome in spring and then fall off. Like, if people remember, how about in season 8 when like Kingzone or whatever it was, where Card was like the shit and go down, and then didn't he make worlds? They finished like 4th or something over, like, what the fuck? Like, that team was considered the number 1 team in the world doing the won LCK. Like, they went to nothing. So there's definitely teams where you just start out bad in spring and then you fall off. That's happened loads in league.
Yeah.
How about that Origin team in the first season of the G2 Super Team when the first split, they were in the finals and they didn't make the playoffs in summer. They fell apart completely. That was a nightmare one for you.
Yeah, there have been like some pretty good iterations of that, at least, in League of Legends. And I think
there'll definitely be some in the NFL. It's more just we'd have to go look at the season. Because the other reason in the NFL you could easily do it is you just need a team that was in like a bad division and got like the easy strength of schedule first, pumped up the record, but then just went to shit when you played the real teams in it. Like that happens sometimes. You do get that sometimes.
The Eagles did feel like different than a lot of traditional sports teams. Like the fall off was very severe. And very bizarre.
That playoff game was fucking shocking. Remember, before that, the one thing a Jalen Hurts team could do is they were going to get rushing touchdowns for free. They couldn't buy a touchdown in that game. It was insane, wasn't it?
Even the Super Bowl last year, like their pass rush just completely fell apart. And like that, they were known for their success in like getting sacks, and they just completely shit the bed in the Super Bowl. It was the whole thing has been very weird to watch. It's almost, I think it has to be at some level of a coaching issue too. You can't take a squad that talented and then like, something weird must have been happening in the locker room for sure. You guys often mention how much money co-streamers like LS Dom and Cadril make. So my question is, how can Dom not afford to buy the guests on his stream functioning microphones? I don't know, man. He just doesn't care. He should do that though. For like, if he's gonna have like the Dom posse, he definitely should like figure out that situation.
Oh no, Monty, let's be real. If you were any of these people and you had the kind of budget and stuff, you wouldn't just be still in the same fucking room. You'd have made like a whole studio, right? You'd have leveled all that shit up, right?
Thorin, I didn't even have that budget. And when I was in LA, I had a multi-camera setup with a 10-foot by 14-foot green screen that I could use and stand in. Okay, so it's not that expensive, number one, and especially not expensive for these co-streamers. And number two, I had it. You've seen it. Especially at my Worlds co-streams, not this past year, but the year before at the end of 2022. You saw I had like a couch set up. We had multiple guests with wireless mics, multiple different camera angles, everybody able to go onto the green screen. I had a fucking baller setup. I don't know. I mean, you guys are asking about Dom buying mics for other people. How about Dom gets a camera angle that isn't like in the rafters looking down at him?
It is weird he does that streamer angle still, isn't it? I know. Sometimes people do like the odd reflections when they do that angle. I'm just like, why is this not just head on? What are we doing here? Like, what is this weird angle? Okay, fair enough. Whatever.
What are some you had to be there moments? Faker Rhea 1v1, Cold Zero jumping 5K, praise Arrow in esports that are underrated and less often considered for the highlight reels. So I guess like really memorable plays that aren't quite as well known as those ones.
I mean, when he says like had to be there, the real problem with almost any of those moments is none of them work in the replay the same way. Because, like, for example, some of the ones he's picking there, like, they blow your mind when they happen live. Like, if you go into it sort of knowing what happened, you'll never be able to experience it the same way. Like, the joke about the Faker Ryu's 1v1 is it's actually a way less impressive play if you, like, stop it, take it out of context, examine it, and look at what they did. And they even miss loads of the abilities and skills. Like, they both fuck up a bunch of times. But because it was game 5, and it was a blind pick game, and it was to make the champion, and at the time, these two teams were both could be the best team in Korea. It was the context that made it fucking insane. And the fact this Faker guy was just popping off and he's a rookie still. The actual play itself isn't even close to the best play in League of Legends. It's not, it wouldn't even be top 50, guys. But, like, and that's why you had to be there, because the moment it was happening, it was so out of nowhere that it was kind of crazy. Like, everyone did lose their mind in the moment.
I would say one that's underrated is probably the T1 KT finals, where Faker played Riven into Nagne's Cassiopeia and then tower dove him, because you have to understand that like Riven mid wasn't played and then he was completely shitting on him. And that is probably one of the all-time like great finals moments in League of Legends history. And I guess it requires some context just because you have to know that Riven was such a weird pick at that time. And it looks more normal now, but at the time it was like amazing.
And people have to remember, this is only in 2015. And remember, they'd won the spring split without even using Faker in the finals. They just beat the G Tigers with like fucking easy hoon. So actually, if you're Faker, this is when you're then re-establishing yourself as the best Korean player. And when he did that move, Monty, where he fucking sidestepped the ult from Cassiopeia, that was like one of those he's him moment. You know what I mean? Oh my God. It was like Neo wake up in the Matrix. Like, oh, he actually is just the greatest player who ever played. Fair enough. Because that was also a finals, guys. He was just smurfing on a finals.
Yeah, he just like rolled Nagne.
It was dope, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was dope. There's obviously loads in CS anyway. Go to the next one. It's all good.
What is an unknown fact about a player coach to the wider public that recontextualizes their entire career or some of their most defining moments? For example, Young Buck achieving the results he got with Fnatic roster despite having the Herculean task of managing the egos of Bwipo, Reckless, and Nemesis. That does sound
All I'll say about that one is this. Look at Fnatic teams after Young Buck. The guy was a genius, mate. Look how he held that together. He had them right poised to win championship of the best ever G2, and he had them in like Worlds playoffs. It said, what more do you want? The guy was a fucking killer. No, it's like that. It's usually the ones like that are probably the weirdest ones, where you don't know behind the scenes, like the team. Like, there's been teams before, Monty, where like some of them were going to like break the lineup up if they lost the next game, and then, you know, they won the game and became like a dominant team in history. Oh, there's some mad ones in history. I'm trying to think for like players though, if there's a really good angle.
So I will say what happened, but I'm not going to say the game or the team, okay? Because this is just the kind of crazy shit that goes on behind the scenes in esports that you can't really talk about. But this happened many years ago at this point in time, and I feel comfortable saying what happened without explaining like who it was that was involved, because that context isn't necessary. But this is an example of things that happen in esports. I was casting, and I happen to know that the reason behind the team's poor performance was because they were having a team-wide crisis where one of their players was basically being held hostage by his girlfriend, who was threatening to commit suicide, and so was pulling this player like away from practice and like consuming all of the time, and was creating a pretty serious, you know, potential implication for the entire team and their players' personal life. And like, this is kind of the stuff that sucks as a caster, because when you know some of this stuff is going on and you have to just sit there and be like, I wonder why this good team is suddenly bad. It fucking blows. And then you know what happens too is that the players are getting flamed because they're underperforming, and like, you know the reasons. But you can't say them. It was bad. It was very bad. Fortunately, nobody did commit suicide. I will say that. The situation was eventually diffused, but not before severely impacting this team's performance.
Fair play.
Do you guys like stew? If so, what is your favorite type of stew? I actually had some stew for dinner.
I think people miss about stew is this, Monty. Like I said, first of all, it's a mad floor raiser food. Like if you do it well, all you have to be able to do is cook some fucking meat, gravy, potatoes, and you've done it already. A little bit of veg, and then secondly, if you know some of the tricks like the Monty knows about the little things you do that make it tastier, you can make it really delicious. Like you can make that gravy so it's like I say, it's so hearty. You feel like fucking. I feel amazing after eating that. It feels awesome, doesn't it?
So I had some stew for dinner tonight, actually. I made so what I did was before I had this kid, I made a fuck ton of food and then froze it so I wouldn't have to cook as much.
Oh, stew's also going to be one of the best to freeze and unfreeze and heat. My cup against
going to taste awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. It actually tastes better the longer it's been kind of like aging.
All right.
Yeah, like eating stew when you just make it is never as good as like the third day after you've made it. It's been like sitting in your fridge for a while, like just, fermenting. So anyway, I threw some in the freezer. So this stew I made with a bunch of you want to use like the slow cook cuts of beef. I think I used eye of round for this beef stew. So you want
don't know. Oftentimes in Ireland or England, you'll use like braised beef or something you've like cooked over ages. You put it for like hours and hours, it'll fall apart when you get to the meat. Yes,
but you want the cuts. So the thing about beef is like, the really beefy beef, like the really deep flavor beef, is the stuff that is often very tough if you don't slow cook it and braise it very slowly over time. Yes. So it's like short ribs and, these kind of, brisket and these kind of cuts. And so the eye of round, I put it in there. Did I use eye of round? I don't remember what I used. So I seared it on all sides, so caramelized it on the outside, chucked it in there, put a bunch of beef broth and mushrooms and onions and carrots and potatoes and bay leaves and, various spices in there, thyme, rosemary, all of that stuff. And then I pressure cooked it in an Instant Pot. And I put tomatoes in there as well. And tonight, because you can eat stew in a lot of ways. You can eat it by itself, put on mashed potatoes. I put it tonight on egg noodles, and it was delicious. Especially because it's really fucking cold in Korea right now. It's like -10 Celsius. It was like, I don't know, 17 degrees Fahrenheit today.
Oh, one of the best feelings ever is coming in when it's cold and eating some really warm, like that sort
of hearty
exactly,
meal.
Yes.
So yeah, I pulled some out of the freezer today and put it over some egg noodles, and it was delicious. Oh, red wine, obviously. It's a red wine reduction. You have to get the red wine in there. It tastes amazing.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's real good. Are there any games you would introduce to your children that you think would greatly increase their ability to succeed in life?
I mean, I assume he means like esports game. I do think, like, for example, like an education, something like chess is probably good for certain types of thinking and planning. But assuming he means esports games, I'm not really sure. Because the problem with esports games, I feel like, is even though in theory I could see how they could be used to like explain certain lessons in life, like how you need to go in, but you need to go in with the support of your team. But the problem is when I say all that, Monty, I just think of all the esports people I've known though, and they seem to just get very specifically good only at the game without taking any of their life lessons. So that's the only thing that scares me is a lot of them seem totally ill-equipped to live life, but they're awesome at these games. So I do get a bit worried in that sense. Maybe if I had some sort of didactic way to teach them using the game,
Maybe if it was their only skill, but I think for me at least, playing like StarCraft Brood War and Warcraft 3 growing up was, I don't know, I wouldn't be the same person because basically, thinking about the game strategically and like breaking it down and really learning it in depth, like prepared me for success in a lot of later life because it is all thinking strategically. It is thinking in terms of minutia. It's trying to trick your opponent. It's having feints. Like I think RTS games one-on-ones are amazing for that. And they also force you to confront your flaws because you can't just be like, oh, I can't believe my support inted. Time to queue up for another and never think about what I did wrong that game. It's like you just see a fat L on your screen and you're like, well, shit, I have to get better. Right. The only thing that caused that L, you either do one of two things. You either say fucking Protoss OP, or you're like, I have to like review the VOD and get better. So I think especially what RTS taught me was that I have to go over my own work and improve. And like it has to be internalized. I can't just externalize and project all my problems. And I think in general, like there are a lot of good board games and stuff. I mean, I think games are amazing at teaching people things. So I love playing board games. I think games in general, even sports are games, and they teach you about teamwork and perseverance. And I think games are some of the best teaching tools there are, frankly.
Poker probably a good one too.
Yeah.
Teach them concepts, bluffing, how to read people. Yeah, stuff like that I think I'd pick. All right, next one.
All right, we'll do 2 more questions. What are some of the things that you should endeavor to never grow out of in spite of societal pressure? Like, what does society tell you need to grow out of?
All right, I'll give you an example. I actually think, here's the problem. The reason it's complicated to say this is because one thing I actually despise about modern culture is the absurd, like, tilt towards neoteny, where you notice people do use copium Monty and try and tell themselves that when they're 50 is the new 40 and 40 is the new 30, and so really, like, I can still be wild and out there and dating people. It's like, I think that's actually quite pathetic, people who just extend like being 20 till they're like 50. I don't like that aspect, but I do think the notion counter to that when you get over the age, I think they've made the year 30 now, mate. People start talking like once you're 31, like, back hurts, but then again, I'm old. It's like, no. That's totally a problem with your lifestyle. That's nothing to do with your back, mate. Like, you probably need to exercise or be in better shape or something. Like, that's the thing I hate, Monty, is when people act like once you get to like 30 or 40, it's like you're supposed to believe life's over and I could never do anything else. I could never start a business. You can still do, there's still essentially, I think you should still have a young person's mentality to like, it's still possible to do new endeavors and to level up or pivot. Or I hate it when people think they're too old for that, because like I say, it feels like the age they're doing that on gets younger and younger now. Like, people talk like our peer group of like 35 now. Like, bro, you can still be having a totally active lifestyle doing all sorts of shit. Like, it's not over for you.
I mean, people play professional sports into their 40s. Like, come on. People can do triathlons into like their 70s. Exactly. You know, if some people could do triathlons at like 70, you know, you can do some exercise at 35.
Yes. Do you have one then?
I think like genuinely showing enthusiasm and joy in certain situations. Like, I feel like people
everyone becomes bitter and cynical or something.
No, it's like, I think it's frowned upon to like really show that you're excited about something, or like, you know, really be engaged with something, right? Okay. That you're excited about. Like, and I think that is shamed as you get older. Like, it's almost like, oh, you're losing your dignity by being excited about something fun that's happening around you. And, you know, you're not supposed to have like that childlike sense of joy. And I think that's lame. I think that's lame. Sauna question. Both of you have lived in Korea, and if I recall right, Thorin has also lived in Finland. Have you lived in Finland?
Yeah, for 3 months. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
It was a long time ago. It was in 2004.
Assuming you've tried both, which style sauna do you find more enjoyable, Finnish or Korean? I've also been in Finnish saunas and Korean.
I mean, the Finnish one is kind of a classic one. I do like the Finnish one. It is good. I'm not as big a fan as they are. Like, I don't like it when they make it too hot and they just keep going with the heat like that. That gets too much eventually. And also they are ridiculous. So they are doing all the dangerous shit, like drinking vodka while in the sauna, while lying back, potentially passed out. Like, essentially, like, they are just gambling, greater than zero chance you just die in the sauna. So I'm not a fan of that part, but I did like the sauna. I will say, the thing about the sauna, if you've never done it before, is bizarrely, even though you're sweating, unlike when you sweat normally, it actually does feel very cleansing. Instead of feeling all grimy, you feel awesome, actually. It does feel as though, look, I don't know if it's like toxins and all that bullshit, but like, it feels like it does something to you, and it does feel like it expresses something through your skin. So I did like that. Whereas here's the problem with the Korean one, Monty. I don't have anything against Korean. Like, I actually think Korean spas are awesome, but there are certain spas that you've got to know this detail. This is the nightmare fuel, and we'll end on a funny anecdote. I didn't know, though, Monty, that there are some spas are strictly sex segregated. So I went to one with, let's say, a girlfriend at the time, thinking this is going to be brilliant, because I'd been to Boo somewhere at like a family spa where, you know, you spend all day inside. It's actually sick. Like, it's that one that Luke went to, if people saw. It's fucking the shit. You can go to all, you know, you can go to like lying beds, massage, pool. I went to one where we went in, so I thought, right, I'll see you in there. And when I went in, the joke was, by entering these 2 different doors, we never met again. It was totally segregated. separated. And so it was just me on my own on the male side. And then when I would do stuff like go in the steam room, it was just a load of like 60-year-old Korean men 24/7 sneak looking at my dick all the time. All the fucking time. And like I say, they were looking like, and then I'd just see them every time I would like look away, like, because listen, I can't lie, I'm sure it was novel. I'm sure they were, oh, look at that. But fucking hell, that was probably one of the most uncomfortable experiences I've ever had, Monty. Like, I left it about 20 minutes in. I sent a message, see you when you finished. Like, I'm not fucking staying there for 3 hours.
So I like both. To your point about the Korean sauna, usually they have gender segregated areas, but they also have areas where you go out and can be together.
Yes,
you have like shorts and a t-shirt that they give you, and so you can go eat food together, like play arcade games, or go to the PC bong, or like go to like co-ed saunas. Yeah. So there you can do both things.
Yeah. No, I got to look at that one. Don't worry about that.
So so the experience of going to a Korean sauna is more complete because there's more like stuff to do and different kinds of sauna rooms and everything like that at a Korean sauna. But if I had to just pick one room, I fucking love Finnish saunas. So I am all about it being so fucking hot that what I like in a sauna is when I can walk out and I can roll my finger down my arm and just have like all of the top layer of my skin peel off. You know what I mean? Where it's like you're actually like burning the top layer of your skin off and like getting all of that. It cleanses you, like, get all the new skin opened up underneath. It is great. I love it when my nostrils just burn. I love it when my ears burn. So you don't like the really hot shit. I love the really hot shit. And then I love the cold plunge after.
Man, if you think that's bad, I once also, just as a random aside, this wasn't in Korea, I once went for a haircut at a place, right, where it was a guy who I guess is like a famous haircut. I won't say where, but I guess it's one of those ones, Monty, where you're not really going to get your style. It's more like he just does whatever he wants on you, right? So this guy starts doing this haircut. It's all going well. He's doing like a good cut. And out of nowhere, he does that thing. He doesn't even do any warning, Monty. He just out of nowhere, I'm just sat there like in the chair. He just suddenly, out of nowhere, shoves two of those things with that like hot wax up my nose and into my ears to get the hair out. And the second those went in, I've never had that done before, Monty. I was so scared. I was thinking, wait a minute, is he going to rip the hairs out? When he just shoved those in without warning, and I was like, what happens now? And then I knew he's coming. Now, I will say he was a pro, so it doesn't hurt, actually. It like rips it off in a way where it like comes out super quick and the haircut. He did do it well, but I was so scared in that moment. I thought like, well, what can I even do? They're in now. I'm fucked now, aren't I? When does this go after this? So, anyway, that's just a random other anecdote there for you.
Wish I could have seen it.
Oh, no, I should film all this shit. It'd be straight fire content, wouldn't it? I know it'd have 100K views.
So yeah, I do love like really, really hot saunas, like the Finnish do. And then I love like going outside and then jumping in a snowbank or like an ice. Oh,
you actually do the
creek.
Snow Angels or whatever.
Oh,
right?
I fucking love that shit, man. Like I feel so alive in those moments where it's like burning, and then you're just in the snow. Or it's like, in Korea, what they have, unfortunately, the saunas don't get as hot because they're not as crazy. You're not in like some shack in the woods in Finland, right? A lot of the times I've been in sweat lodges and stuff like that are intended to like kind of put you in an out of body experience. So that's like I've never been to Finland, but like, I know what they do.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. And so I've been in sweat lodges. And so like I love getting it super fucking hot and then jumping in somewhere cold. In Korea, you can go into the hot saunas. And then they've got cold pools. Or what I like is they have like these chains on showers. So you just pull the chain and it's just like ice water that dumps on you.
Okay. Okay, now.
I love that.
Okay, now. No, listen, I can't lie. I've had a crazy night where I dived face first into a bunch of snow and I got a really high feeling too, but it wasn't anything to do with the sauna, I'll tell you that right now.
No, the dichotomy is great. So it's actually fun. Now that I'm in Korea, there's actually a sauna in like the basement of the apartment, like the series of apartment towers.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I can just what I can do is like go to the gym and then I could just go to the sauna, sit in the hot sauna, take a shower, and then just get in the cold pool afterwards. It's great.
By the way, that's also where I can confirm Finns have fucking cracked it, because like The person I was staying with just had the sauna built into the apartment. It was in every one of the apartment in this building we were in. Like, it was just default, actually. Some of them have it as well as a shower, basically. So I thought it was awesome. Like, you had your own little personal one. Look, you couldn't obviously fit loads of people. You could fit like 4 people in there, but that's all you need. It's in your own apartment, even. It's the shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Someday I want to have one of those finished saunas in my house.
Oh,
that would be the dream. That would be the dream.
Yes.
So, great question. Sorry, guys, we're not going to get all the questions this week. I am deliriously tired. So we will be back, of course. Actually, while we're here, Power Spike is back tomorrow. And Best Damn League show with Nymira will be later this week. And so we're back on our 4 League of Legends schedule for the regular season. So Monty and Wolf show for LCK is coming out. Then Summoning Insight, then Power Spike, then Best Damn League show with Thorin's new kind of cycle of guests. So we will see you. I'll see you tomorrow, and Thorin and I will see you together on Summoning Insight next week. Till then.